Chapter 249, A New Plan. He Xiang's face was black. The battle that had occurred at Nanxing village was nothing less than a slap to his face. Also, this incident had coincided with the most crucial moment in negotiations. Looking at the slightly mocking expressions on the faces of the group of leaders, he understood that he would not be able to negotiate for the price he wanted. He needed to prove Clear Sky sect's dominance of Little Mountain Jie. He needed to tell everyone what would happen if they went against Clear Sky sect and him. He Xiang's expression was twisted viciously like a wild beast wanting to bite someone. There was none of the slight smile that had been on his face during the day. All of you, just wait. Zuo read through Yuan Zhang's new plan. At first glance, he liked this plan, a plan that was completely different than before. Yuan Zhang was introducing the details. This is an extreme plan. All of the construction is about one goal, our imaginary enemy, the Clear Sky Old Forefather. When he spoke of Clear Sky Old Forefather, Yuan Zhang's voice was excited. To be able to maximize offensive and defensive capabilities, we rejected the plan to build a large city in this new plan. We will build a small city, a very small city, one that can only contain 10,000 people. Over here. He pointed at the highest peak. As the new city will be small, it will greatly reduce the area we have to defend, and gather our strength. Inside the new city, other than the basic necessities, all other constructions not related to combat have been abolished. The new city will be a big formation. This way, we can dramatically increase the defensive capabilities of the new city. We will hollow out the other 6 mountain peaks, and connect them to the new city underground. This way, we can form a gigantic 7-star formation. We've never planned such a large formation before, and do not know if it can stop a Jindan, but this is the limits of what we can do. Boss needs to find experts in formations to complete this plan. Zuo stared at the new blueprints without a word. Yuan Zhang was slightly uncertain. He didn't want to ruin his first job. What he didn't know was that his plan had given Zuo endless inspiration, especially the idea of digging out the 6 mountain peaks and forming a 7-star formation underground. That idea was too crazy, too creative. Zuo was thinking, if it was like that, the Sky Star Lake could also be included in the big formation. Using the mountains and lakes to set up a formation, Yuan Zhang's plans had opened a new window for Zuo. Zuo had never tried such a terrifying and large formation. However, he knew that if this big formation could be formed, its power would be greater than any formation he had ever set up before. The entire area around Sky Star Mountain would become an area controlled by the new city. Also, it would be so well disguised. Who could think that anyone would set up such an insane formation? There were many places inside the city that could be improved, especially in the area of formations. It was clear that the 3 people were less skilled in the area of formations compared to Zuo. Zuo suddenly thought of a problem. Power. Such a large formations, how many Jingshi would it take to activate? An even more insane idea jumped out of his head. Just at this time, he heard Yuan Zhang's worried words, "Boss, the building materials for this city isn't easy to find." Zuo silently remembered his thought and raised his head to smile smugly at Yuan Zhang. "We've already started to prepare the bricks." Yuan Zhang stilled, and did not look very happy. He said, "Boss, for the new city to achieve the predicted effect, these bricks can't be just anything. We need, follow me." Zuo did not waste words and turned to lead the front. When Yuan Zhang saw the mountains of blue gold stone bricks that had already been processed, he was dumbstruck. The other 2 people also gaped, looking dazedly at the glittering blue gold bricks. After a beat, Yuan Zhang managed to react and leap forward. Good. The quality is comparable to talismans. However, it is the first time I have seen such a hot presence. Yuan Zhang's expression was excited. Only now did he finally believe that boss really wanted to build a city. These bricks have been processed with golden crow fire. The quality isn't bad. A rock in Zuo's heart landed. It looked like these bricks would satisfy Yuan Zhang's demands. Great! Yuan Zhang was thrilled. Now that the problem of the bricks has been resolved, the other problems are easy. Mo did not speak. In his view, it was the exact opposite. The other problems were even harder. It really was a vast undertaking. Wei Qingbin's recent days were not very good. Rationally, absorbing such a desired and fine fire seed as golden crow fire should make a person happy. Even though there was none of the ling grains that had been predicted, but everyone had received a black meditation mat. When Master Sun Bao had showed them how to use it, these black meditation mats had become everyone's most treasured possession. Many people were regretting that they hadn't taken enough Jingshi with them. No one had any objections about their wages turning from the ling grains to Jingshi. What saddened him was the work that had followed. When he saw the bluestone bricks that were multiple times larger than he was, he instantly did not know what to do. After that, it had taken him great effort before managing to process one of them. Then he found that other people had finished 3 pieces. Therefore, his wages were 1/3 of other people's income. Master Ji Wei suddenly gathered people together. Who knows how to make small parts? The dejected Wei Qingbin instantly jumped out, his eyes bright. I know. Other than him, a few other people had also stood up. Wei Qingbin glanced and laughed inside. All of them were people that had not performed well in the recent days. Master Ji Wei did not say anything and gave them each a jade scroll. Make whatever you can from what is in there. All the materials are over there. It's the same, pay by unit. Finishing, Master Ji Wei did not waste words and left. In the time he had spent here, Wei Qingbin had gradually gotten used to the busy atmosphere in this place. There were no idle people to be seen here. All the people, including boss, seemed extremely busy. The cave was even more so. Because wages were calculated according to quantity, everyone was furiously working as the meditation mat meant Jingshi became a lifesaver. Everyone hoped to get more Jingshi. Only Xiuzhe that had experienced the lack of Ling energy and faced the possibility that their cultivation could collapse at any time would work so crazily. He started to read the jade scroll in his hands and made a sound of surprise. Everything inside the jade scroll were strange metal constructs. There seemed like talismans but were not talismans. There were very detailed descriptions. Wei Qingbin recognized them. These were for a type of puppet. He silently praised the wisdom of the person who had this idea. The puppet had been deconstructed to many little constructs. This person clearly was going after assembly. Wei Qingbin reacted. The number of Xiuzhe here was limited, and there were no Xiu slaves. Puppets were a pretty good substitute. However, what puzzled him was that puppets needed Xiuzhe to direct them. With so many puppets, how many Xiuzhe would be needed to direct them? This thought turned in his head once before he threw it out. That wasn't something he should care about. He started to work. A short while later, he made his first finished product. He was greatly encouraged, and worked hard. He gradually found that the smaller and more exquisite the item, the easier it was for him to make it. Master Ji Wei quickly noticed his specialty and was somewhat shocked before giving him a job with a batch of small items. His wages quickly grew with astonishing speed. The Xiuzhe around him stared jealously. These days were actually not bad, Wei Qingbin occasionally thought. Still haven't found them. He Xiang bellowed, you group of garbage. How many days has it been since they escaped? You still haven't found them. This group is very cunning. They had scattered and escaped, which wasted a lot of our time. His subordinate defended. Don't find excuses. He Xiang controlled his anger, his tone dark, what I want are results. As long as old forefathers' order has not come down, I am the chief elder. Before this, I can execute any of you. The subordinates paled. They knew that He Xiang was not wrong. I'll give you 3 more days. If you cannot find them in 3 days, you can take your heads to see me. He Xiang's words seemed to come from the depths of hell, cold and terrifying. The subordinates knew that defending themselves was ineffective at this time. Everyone dejectedly bowed and quickly left. the chief elder would do what he said. The old forefather would not interfere. There were too many people waiting to enter to the outer hall, too many people that could replace them. When everyone had left, He Xiang collapsed on the chair as though he had been robbed of all energy. His eyes were as dull as those of a dead fish. 3 days, that was the deadline the old forefather gave. If there were no further developments in 3 days, he wasn't going to live any longer. Originally, he had wanted to conceal this matter, and had not expected someone to bring it to old forefather. The result could be imagined. If he did not display enough ability, he knew very well the outcome waiting for him. Ma Fan chewed a piece of grass in his mouth, looking in boredom at the sky above his head. He muttered, "Troublesome, it really is troublesome." The platoon leader tightly followed behind his butt, completely disregarding Ma Fan's grouching. He was overjoyed at having gotten picked by Ma Fan. He was one of the original ones and very clear as to Ma Fan's previous position and effect within the troop. Previously, many people had expected Ma Fan would have been the first division leader. This platoon leader knew one thing. If he followed behind Ma Fan, he would learn many things. The Xiuzha under his command did not understand why the platoon leader was so respectful towards this Xiuzha that had been inattentive all this time. In their eyes, the biggest reason Ma Fan did not fit in with the troop was that indifference he exuded. Idle, lazy, wasn't those things that the platoon leader extremely disliked? They aren't far from us. A piece of grass held between his lips, Ma Fan's words were slightly muddled. The platoon leader listened very carefully. On the way here, he was full of admiration towards Ma Fan's judgment. Ma Fan raised his eyelids, looked into the distance, and continued, "Let everyone recover their Ling power. They will probably encounter us in 6 hours." The platoon leader's expression tensed. The slight wind in the air suddenly seemed slightly murderous. Chapter 250, Pu Yao's insane suggestions. Wei Mo stretched and released a long breath, his entire body sore. However, when he looked at the jade scroll in front of him, he couldn't help but give a proud smile. He had completely improved the new plan. All the formations in the plans were redone. Formation defense style, have a taste of the true formation's defense style. Zui Mo was very satisfied and proud of the finished plan. In the process of improving them, he had benefited. It had been very valuable. There were many questions he had never thought of before. There were many problems when building a city, and it was far more complex than formations. He tried to put different kinds of formations into every corner of the plans. Unlike Yuan Jiang and the others, Zui Mo would use formations in any place possible if he did not have to use manpower. The enormous construction would become a shockingly complex formation group, a gigantic formation belt composed of more than 400 formations of various sizes. Zui Mo anticipated what expression Yuan Jiang would have when he saw this completely transformed plan. Pu Yao suddenly came out to remind him, "This is a good chance." Zui Mo stilled and asked, "What's a good chance?" Gong Sun Cha had become at leisure recently and spent every day playing war chess with Pu Yao. Usually, as long as he was facing off Gong Sun Cha, Pu Yao would be much calmer. Many times, Zui Mo could not help but feel that Pu Yao really was like a child. Of course, this kind of comparison was something a Sky Yao could not tolerate. Zui Mo had smartly shut his mouth. "Your body is barely acceptable, but you have been lacking in your cultivation recently. The potential of this body has not been completely excavated," Pu Yao said, his voice heavy. "Wastefulness is shameful." Zui Mo looked in shock at Pu Yao. That tone, why did it sound so similar to his own? Wrong feeling, wrong feeling. Zui Mo shook his head and threw the feeling aside. He said in helplessness, "There's no other way. You can see it. I'm just one person. I can't be split in two. So what is in front of you is a chance. Right now, you have reached the peak of mountain physique. If you take another step, you will give birth to the moon soul, and reach the level of Mo Captain." Light flashed through Pu Yao's bloody pupil. The level of Mo Captain? Equivalent to your Xiuzha's Ningmai. Mo was greatly disappointed. He was already Ningmai. After the breakthrough to create a moon soul, that would just be equivalent to a Ningmai. It was not that attractive to him. Pu Yao seemed to see what Mo was thinking and smiled coldly. Don't feel as though it is unprofitable. Your physique has a name, it is called jade metal head. Metal skin, jade bones. In low-level Mo physiques, it is among the top. That guy really put a lot of effort into it. Your luck isn't bad, you made it through. Once you have a moon soul, you can absorb the power of the moon, and grow quickly. Also, there is an extra benefit to you that others don't have. What benefit? Mo hurriedly asked. Your spiritual cultivation is star spiritual cultivation. If you can cultivate to moon soul, you can absorb the powers of the stars and moon. If you are lucky, you may cultivate the stars and moon wheel. What is the stars and moon wheel? Just like you shouja like using grades to divided good and bad, high and low, Yama have similar divisions. Mo cultivate their bodies. There are many considerations. Other than the Mo skills learned during life, all kinds of Mo physiques are crucial, and there are naturally differences in quality. Mo live under military law. They like using military rankings to divide everything. Soldier, captain, colonel, brigadier general, marshal, king. That group of people are simple-minded. Almost everything is divided like this, it's easy to remember. Pu Yao's tone was filled with disdain and scorn towards the intelligence of Mo, then jade metal head is what level? 5th in captain level. Pu Yao spread out 5 fingers and waved them. Seeing the disappointment on Mo's face, he sneered, alright, don't act as though you didn't get anything. Mo physique isn't so easy to achieve. Any physique in the top 5 of all levels are what others dream about. However, you have to be careful, Mo physique is good, but if you encounter those people that refine corpses, you have to be careful. Mo physique is something they dream about too. Ha ha. Mo's heart tightened as he listened. Then stars and moon wheel. It's also a Mo physique. It is also a Mo physique, but it is even more rare. 12th in colonel level, Pu Yao recalled, if I didn't remember it wrong. Mo listened and was even more confused. Is there any practical benefits? Pu Yao stilled. What is called practical benefits? Like can I defend against other people's flying swords, like my strength is 10 times what it was, like, Pu Yao rolled his eyes, if someone like you can deal with flying swords with just your body, you shoujo would have been destroyed by us Yama a long time ago. Mo was embarrassed. He found it was correct when he thought about it. If Mo could handle strikes from a flying sword with only their body, then shoujo of the same level would not be a match for them. Flying swords could deal the greatest damage of all the talismans, and it was the sharpest. If even the flying sword could not wound the other, then other talismans really could not do a thing against the Yama. The flying swords of the shoujo are still very powerful, Pu Yao sighed. You have never seen truly powerful shoujo. With their actions, they can destroy the earth and sky. They can even easily tear apart space, and nothing can stop them. Mo was not interested in those things that were too far away from him, and diverged back to the topic. Those old people has nothing to do with us. This jade metal head is 5th in captain level, it should have some unique attributes. Unique attributes? Pu Yao nodded. Of course. The biggest attribute of the jade metal head is that it is suitable for all Mo skills. Just this? Mo asked in response. Yes, you don't think this is enough? Pu Yao looked at Mo like he was looking at a weirdo. Mo was slightly embarrassed by Pu Yao's stare. But I don't know Mo skills. If you don't want to be killed at any moment, don't cultivate Mo skills in the short term. Pu Yao said solemnly, when you start to cultivate Mo skill, the presence will radiate out. You will only die terribly. Mo was dumbstruck. After all this time, every word was a waste. Then why should I cultivate my body? I should just cultivate the sword. If not that, then even the consciousness works. Little thousand-leaf hands is stronger than that. In a reversal of his usual attitude, Pu Yao shook his head. If you do not have this jade metal head, I won't urge you, but with such a wonderful mo physique, if you do not cultivate it, it really is a waste. You cannot practice mo skills at the moment, but that is fine. The jade metal head itself contains extremely deep potential. If you can dig out all the potential, when you cultivate mo skills in the future, half of the work is already done, and you do not have to worry about the mo energy slipping out. Zhuo Mo waved his hand and said unconcernedly, you say these pleasing things, but if we don't get over this obstacle, any mo skill cultivation is useless. Pu Yao was speechless. He thought and then nodded, you are also right. Maybe we can alter it. Alter? Zhuo Mo was slightly bewildered. What was with Pu Yao today? Why was he so chatty? We shall do an analysis of what moves you have available. Pu Yao sat down. Let's not include sword scriptures, your talent with the sword really is not good, and your sword essence level is too low, not even at heart-turn sword essence. It isn't even enough to scratch an itch for a Jindan. Little thousand-leaf hands is pretty powerful, but your consciousness is not strong enough to threaten a Jindan. The sky wave fist scripture is not enough against a Jindan. The only thing that can be effective is your big formation. The grade of the Yin fire beads are too low to be of significance. Those sonic lightning walnuts might give him some trouble if they are forged properly. When he finished, Pu Yao spread his hands. See, no matter what you cultivate, it's useless. Zhuo Mo was extremely impacted and speechless. However, some areas have potential. Pu Yao knew very well how to use the stick and the carrot. Zhuo Mo became alert at those words. Tell me. It's a good idea to use Yang Fiend Hard Lightning to forge sonic lightning walnuts. You may want to borrow from the methods of the Yin fire beads, Pu Yao reminded. Zhuo Mo slapped his forehead and said with joy, right, why didn't I think of that? In the Yin fire bead chapter, there hadn't been just one powerful way to make Yin fire beads. Wouldn't their effects be better than what he thought of himself? He wanted to immediately read the Yin fire bead chapter. The clear sky old forefather was like a sharp sword hanging above his head. He could not sleep well. He had always lacked moves that could threaten his enemies. Now that he had found one, how could he not rejoice? Other than the sonic lightning walnuts, if your physique could improve greatly in the short term, sky glass wave may also give him some trouble. Zhuo Mo still again. When he thought closely, he instantly found it feasible. If his body cultivation could make another step forward, if the number of revolutions his Ling power took could increase, the power of Sky Glass Wave would also increase. He had used Sky Glass Wave to break through the space shield of a 5th grade Ling beast. Even though the bloody horned serpent was just a semi-5th grade Ling beast, but if he could increase, he might be able to threaten the clear sky old forefather. The more he thought, the more excited Zhuo Mo was. He suddenly found that he could attack. It was like seeing a ray of light in the darkness. Even though it was just a thread, but it still gave him hope. He asked impatiently, what is the opportunity you said? City construction. Pu Yao blinked his bloody pupil. City construction. Zhuo Mo stilled again, what does this have to do with city construction? The corner of Pu Yao's mouth carelessly rose, his bloody pupil narrowed slightly, and his peerlessly handsome face became even harder to decipher. He looked like a cunning hunter that threw out the bait he had already prepared. With a light laugh, he said, haven't you ever thought of building the city by yourself? Build the city by myself? Zhuo Mo was dumbstruck where he stood. Yes, build the city by yourself. Pu Yao raised his long and white finger that contrasted with the bright red fingernail. He chuckled, such a meaningful affair. A city that belongs completely to you. Making the foundation by yourself, making the city by yourself, making the formations by yourself, Zhuo Mo turned to stone. See, it won't just exercise your body, it can also exercise your consciousness and your Ling power. Where else can you find such a good chance? A little city that can hold 10,000 people, it really is too small. At the beginning, I had assumed you were building a little city that could hold 100,000 people at the very least. That way, you will be exercised even more. Shall we expand the city? Don't you want to kill that Jean Dan? Your little life is the most important. The harder you work, the more powerful you will be. If you sweat more now, you will spill less blood later. Hearing Pu Yao nag into his ears, Zhuo Mo received a great fright. His eyes rolling back, he fainted. Chapter 251, Crazy Zhuo Mo. Even a person as unconcerned with worldly affairs as Chen Yuqing had heard the news. Is there really nothing wrong with Shi Xiang? Looking at a half-naked Zhuo Mo that appeared like a maniac, he asked with worry and uncertainty. Gong Sun Cha shook his head and said, I don't know. I heard that he's going to build the city by himself. Chen Yuqing carefully asked. He looked with slight sympathy at Zhuo Mo. Shi Xiang was normally a fanatic, but had the pressure recently been too much, and caused him to become abnormal? Yes, Gong Sun Cha also responded carefully in a small voice as well. I even asked Shi Xiang a few days ago if we should sweep some more Xiuzha over. Shi Xiang said he was going to build the city by himself. So the news is true. Chen Yuqing gave a long sigh, and looked again. He sighed, as expected. I just knew that Shi Xiang isn't the average person. He looked in sympathy at Zhuo Mo, then turned and left with his hands behind his back. Shi Xiang isn't normal, as expected. Gong Sun Cha gave the same exclamation as before, also turning and leaving. Yuan Zhang's heart trembled as he forced himself to say, Boss, this foundation, it needs to be dug deeper to work. Zhuo Mo turned around his face, his eyes gleaming like that of a wolf. Yuan Zhang's face paled. Luckily, Zhuo Mo only glanced at him before turning back to furiously start to dig the foundations. He jumped into the pit, his hands dancing as the soil flew. The earth hole quickly increased in depth and size with a speed visible to the naked eye. Yuan Zhang furiously swallowed from the side, his face filled with fear. To be in the position of supervisor like this, he was to be pitied. Every time he saw Boss' twisted features, it was as though there was an ancient wasteland beast in front of him that could open its jaws and swallow him at any moment. He would be so frightened by Boss' gleaming gaze to the point of forgetting to breathe whenever he pointed out areas where Boss had not met the specifications. This world was crazy. The frightened Yuan Zhang felt every day was full of darkness, so black that there was no light. He could not understand what sickness Boss had that he would suddenly want to construct a city by himself. Yes, this city was really quite small. A new city that could hold 10,000 people, the smallest of small cities, but it was still a city. As grown-up as he was, oh, please forgive him for incoherence, it was slightly dubious for Yuan Zhang, who was over 80 years old, to say this. However, in his 80 years of life, he had never seen, nor heard of a Xiuzha who built a city by themselves. What made him feel helpless was that Boss was serious. As a supervisor, Yuan Zhang thought that Boss was a very exceptional constructor. Look at that blinding speed. If someone had such a good worker under them, any supervisor would laugh. However, if the situation was changed and there was only this one good worker, then they would cry. With Boss' present speed, Yuan Zhang felt hopelessness about building the city. What made him feel the greatest lack of hope was that the other was his boss. Zhuo Mo felt every piece of muscle in his body was trembling uncontrollably. He seemed to have lost control over his body. He opened his mouth like a fish that was thrown onto land, his body motionless. This body cultivation was really through. Zhuo Mo felt even the insides of his head were trembling. All of his power, no matter if it was physical power, Ling power, or spiritual power, had been completely consumed in this extreme labor. In the plans for the city, the foundation was to be 20 zhang deep. Zhuo Mo had to use his bare hands to dig out the entire foundation. Pu Yao was very devious. Zhuo Mo weakly cursed Pu Yao inside. After resting for a moment, the lingdan he had shoved into his mouth earlier started to release their medicinal power. The black processing meditation mat under his body continuously guided Ling energy into Zhuomo's body. At this moment, Zhuomo's body was like a parched desert that was greedily sucking in any drop of medicinal and Ling power. After a while, Zhuomo recovered some energy and struggled up. The sun above his head was slightly blinding. He turned to glance at the half-completed ditch. Taking in a deep breath, he jumped back into the ditch. The abnormal state of boss had long ago passed through the entire camp. Everyone had been discussing it in secret. They couldn't understand what boss intended to do. Zhuomo mechanically waved his arms. His speed was very fast. His consciousness was continuously released and reflected every detail of the dirt around him. Pu Yao had been right. If he could build up this city by himself, his strength definitely could break through to a whole new level. But this was such a perverse plan. Zhuomo tightly pressed together his dry lips, pushed his head down and dug crazily. He started to learn how to use his consciousness to inspect the surrounding dirt, how to use the structure already present in the soil to save energy. He started to understand how to frugally use Ling power. Before this, he had never thought there would be a day where he would use Ling power so stingily. He started to understand how to move his hands as he absorbed earth energy at the same time. 3 days later, a square-shaped hole 20 zhang deep appeared on Sky Star Peak. Zhuomo looked like a mud person. Only his eyes were revealed. After laughing soundlessly, he sat down and crossed his legs. Yuan Jiang was at the side, gaping as he looked at the 20 zhang deep foundation, a foundation that had completely met the specifications. It was not just him that was gaping. The entire camp was shocked. Those Xiuzha that had had slightly mocking attitudes were so shocked they could not speak when they saw this 20 zhang deep ditch. Who could believe this was something a Xiuzha had dug with his bare hands? However, they had seen the entire process with their own eyes. Those people that had watched in order to laugh at the joke now only felt admiration. In the sea of consciousness, Pu Yao stared at the gravestone and said, "I now understand why you chose him. You," he paused after each word, "are similarly stubborn." The gravestone was still silent, the black clouds slowly moving around it. Gongsun Cha looked thoughtfully at the meditating Zhuomo and turned back to return to the camp. He ordered the Xiuzha in a low voice, "Tell Ma Fan and the others to distract some more. They need to slow them down. We need more time." "Yes." This Xiuzha took out a paper crane, wrote down a secret code on it, and lightly channeled Ling power. The paper crane flapped into the sky and instantly disappeared. Before Ma Fan and the others left, they had left behind their impressions. These paper cranes could follow the impressions and find Ma Fan and the others. Little Mountain Jia was not large. It was convenient to use paper cranes. "What about us?" Another Xiuzha couldn't help but ask. Other than Ma Fan and the others had each taken a platoon with them, there were still many battle Xiuzha at the camp. The figure of Shixiang completely covered in mud appeared in Gongsun Cha's mind. His steps slightly paused before recovering. "Naturally, we can't be idle as well." Ma Fan scanned the battlefield. More than a dozen corpses laid askew on the grass. Large holes could be seen everywhere. The plains that appeared to extend without end had been torn to pieces. The Ling power was lingering in the air. It almost was possible to smell the viciousness of the battle moments ago. The enemy had all been destroyed, but one of their own had also died. The platoon leader's expression was slightly sorrowful. This was the first time that a fatality had occurred under his command. The remaining Xiuzha were silently cleaning up the battlefield and gathering the spoils. The victory had turned melancholic due to one of their own dying. Ma Fan looked at his slightly dejected fellows and was somewhat shocked but also proud. In any group that he had stayed in before, the morale would have never dropped after a victorious battle due to one of their own dying. Maybe, these were true fellows. Ma Fan thought idly. Just at this time, he raised his head. A paper crane flew through the sky. He held out a hand, and the paper crane flew in. Unfolding it and reading, he muttered, "Trouble." He then handed the paper crane to the platoon leader behind him. "What does head mean?" The face of the platoon leader was filled with puzzlement. There was no explicit orders on the paper crane, just telling them to try their best to delay the enemy. Ma Fan did not reply. Noticing the cleaning of the battlefield was almost done, he adjusted his clothing, and lazily said, "Get everyone to prepare. We need to leave here. The enemy will probably quickly find this place." "Where should we go?" the platoon leader asked with curiosity. "Let's go south." The platoon leader jumped in fright. "Isn't that Nanxing village?" "Yes," Ma Fan said absent-mindedly. As his understanding of sword essence deepened, his original personality started to gradually show. After the reorganization, he did not need to act as the core, and his entire person seemed to instantly have relaxed, and resumed his lazy attitude of the past. "Why are we going there?" "To attack Nanxing village." Ma Fan looked at the platoon leader like he was looking at an idiot. "We only have this tiny amount of people. Attack Nanxing village? Do you want to die? Then why are we going south?" Ma Fan did not look at him. He plucked a stalk of green grass and held it in his mouth, mumbling, "Killing midway." The sound of the whistle was like knives. Zhuo opened his eyes, the light in them bright. He had meditated for 3 whole days. How long had it been since he had such a long meditation? Zhuo thought back in his mind, his heart filled with joy. He could feel the change in his body. Jade Metal Head, ranked 5th of all captain physiques. As expected, it was extraordinary. He didn't seem to use strength, but his body seemed to be pulled up by an invisible rope, and he stood up. Metal skin and jade bones. He had not experienced the benefits of these jade bones, but the benefits of this metal skin had started to clearly show. The muscles of his body had been as hard as metal in the beginning with astounding flexibility. When he dug the foundation, every piece of muscle in his body seemed to have been reforged again. The space between the muscles decreased, and the muscles became tighter and more dense. These minuscule changes increased his strength by 3/10. He did not need to use Ling power or earth energy to easily push his hand into the bluestone. Looking at his body covered in mud, he wasn't angry and snickered. The little art of cloud and rain instantly appeared above his head. The rain vented, and in a short while, all the mud on Zhuo's body had been washed away. Zhuo discovered that his skin seemed to now show a strange black sheen that seemed slightly metallic. As he marveled, Zhuo took his eyes away. Yuan Jiang, who had fallen asleep as he stood guard, was awoken at this time, and opened his blurred eyes. When he saw Zhuo, he instantly shook, and the drowsiness disappeared. He seemed to jump off the ground and rapidly flew next to Zhuo. "Boss. Let's continue. What do we do next?" Zhuo looked at the deep foundation. Bravado suddenly flooded into his heart. "Come on." Chapter 252, Fire Paper Method. He Xiang released a breath in the side. 12 hours before the final deadline, and he had finally found the enemy. As long as he found the enemy, he had the time to sort them out. The feeling of living after near death filled his body. He couldn't help but want to exhale, but when he saw the hint of disappointment in the eyes of Second Elder, he forced himself to keep it in. A hint of darkness flashed across the deepest part of his eyes. He did not want to show his weakness in front of his opponent. "I've said it before. As long as they are in Little Mountain Jia, how can we not find them?" He pretended to be calm and said with a smile, "Tell us the situation." He looked as though he had expected all this. "Chief Elder, our people had encountered the enemy on the plains in West River. A small platoon of 16 people, our people were completely defeated." "West River Plains?" He Xiang mused, "Let Yuan take some people and make a trip. The other side has 4 people that have comprehended sword essence, and a Diana Xiao that has an abhina. We cannot underestimate them." "Yes." The subordinate hurriedly complied. Go quickly. Report anytime there is news. He Xiang waved his hand. The subordinate was perceptive and left. No wonder this group dared to be so presumptuous. They do have some ability. He Xiang smiled as he spoke to the other elders. A little troop just disappeared like this without a sound. Chief elder is wise, an elder agreed. However, if they want to work against our Clear Sky sect, they obviously do not know their own limits, and are asking for their death. The other elders all nodded. As to the little troop that had all died, no one was concerned. What did it have to do with them? The outer hall did not lack for people. Below their feet were patches of clouds that spread into the horizon like a sea of clouds. Flying above the cloud layer, the sky was perfectly blue. Without any cover, the sunlight was abnormally poisonous. If one did not have their Ling armor activated, they would be unknowingly corroded with a thread of fire poison contained in the sunlight. There would rarely be Xiuzha who would fly so high. The strong wind at high elevations and the fire poison in the sunlight would increase the consumption of Ling power in flight. A troop of about 300 people howled across the sea of clouds with astounding speed. Boss, where are we going? The subordinate asked Gongsun Cha. Gongsun Cha was sitting on a large green sword. There was an egg-shaped Ling shield around the big sword, blocking out the sharp wind and poisonous sunlight. Inside the Ling shield, it was as warm as the spring and unusually silent. This big sword that was about 1.5 zhang long had been forged of an entire block of 4th-grade wind Ling wood. Peerlessly light, it was an extremely fine flying sword. However, it was sumptuous to use such a big piece of wind Ling wood to make a flying sword. This was a spoil of victory. This flying sword was called Green Cloud, and had become Gongsun Cha's personal flying sword. Because this flying sword could hold 7 or 8 people at the same, the person sitting on the point of the flying sword was the Xiuzha who was controlling Green Cloud. With Gongsun Cha's Zhuji cultivation, he basically could not move Green Cloud. Don't you feel that we are too few in number? When Gongsun Cha asked this, he seemed very much like a young and confused youth. Of course, the people sitting here had become immune long ago. Not too few. We have 6 divisions now. But this city can hold 10,000 people. Gongsun Cha's voice seemed slightly childlike. Everyone sweated. It seemed Lil Miss' sense of humor was increasing. However, Gongsun Cha's words made everyone's hearts shake. The implication of Lil Miss's words were clear. They couldn't help but feel a thread of sympathy for the Xiuzha in the surrounding area. Then which place are we going to fight this time? The subordinate asked carefully. One by one. Everyone shook again. Gongsun Cha moved his mouth and another Xiuzha took out a jade scroll, channeling Ling power inside. A light flashed and an illusory landscape of rivers and mountains appeared in front of them. There are 13 different powers in our surroundings. The biggest has over 500 Xiuzha, the smallest has 80 Xiuzha. Oh, on average, each faction has about 200 people. 13 factions, how many would that be? Gongsun Cha tilted his head as he asked. The subordinate swallowed, about 2,600 people. The faces of the people changed slightly. In total, they had slightly more than 300 people. If they were to attack more than 2,600 people, the difference in numbers was really too large. Just 2,000. A slightly disappointed expression came onto Gongsun Cha's face. Everyone's heart jumped simultaneously as they hurriedly urged. It's more than enough, more than enough. Head, we should fight one at a time. Yes, yes. An empire isn't built in a day. They feared that Gongsun Cha would be crazy and increase the number of targets. It was very likely that something like that could happen. Gongsun Cha showed a disappointed expression. Alright, even though it is slightly less, but we shall first eat them. Head is wise. The subordinates said together. Gongsun Cha smiled as though he enjoyed the respect of all the people. Head, we've taken so many people out, the safety of the camp is, we don't have to worry about that. It's enough to have 2 platoons standing guard. That woman is very strong, Gong Sun Cha said carelessly. Everyone finally recalled that boss had a female show of immeasurable power that followed him. Then they recalled the 3 golden armor guards that never showed their faces, and instantly stopped talking. Oh, we will return to the camp in a month. The faint tone made everyone's hearts shake as it entered their ears. All of the Shouja forcefully stood up from the body of the sword. Floating midair, they solemnly accepted the order. Yes. Batches of blue gold bricks were transported next to the foundation. They piled up into little mountains. Yuan Jiang glanced over and couldn't stop himself from swallowing. He urged weakly, "Boss, we should call some more people over." Suemo ignored him and picked up 2 blue gold bricks. The thick brick seemed to weigh nothing in his hands. What do I do? Seeing the situation, Yuan Jiang could only helplessly inform, gold soup needs to be poured between 2 blue gold bricks, and then spells are used to reinforce them. During the entire process, you have to notice to not damage the formations already on the blue gold bricks. The root of the wall needs to be set up with earth element formations to connect them to the earth veins, so they can root themselves in the earth and become hard to shake. After the city walls are completed, bigger formations have to be drawn onto the surface of the outside walls. Yuan Jiang had already prepared and handed Suemo a jade scroll. There were all kinds of detailed explanations in it, like the recipe for the gold soup. Gold soup was a substance that was created by mixing all kinds of gold element materials together. After he finished reading the entire scroll, Suemo suddenly asked, "Can't I just melt the 2 blue gold bricks together?" Melt them together? Yuan Jiang was dumbstruck. How to melt? Suemo himself was not so confident about the idea he just had and decided to try. He put the 2 blue gold bricks together, and then he summoned the golden crow fire. After some thought, the spell on his hands changed, and the golden crow fire seemed to be pulled in 4 directions by an invisible force. Yuan Jiang's eyes were wide as he stared at the changes in Suemo's golden crow fire. The golden crow fire gradually spread out and became increasingly thin until it was as thin as paper, an extremely thin golden piece of fire paper. At this point, the fire paper did not change anymore, but slowly flew towards the 2 blue gold bricks that were stacked together. The fire paper paused in front of the blue gold brick and then burrowed into the gap between the 2 blue gold bricks. The fire paper quickly spread out flat between the 2 pieces of blue gold bricks. A short while later, the brick surfaces facing the gap started to melt at the same time. There were no other signs of melting in the other parts of the brick. Suemo's expression was serious. His consciousness was spread to its limits. Seeing that it was almost enough, the fire paper suddenly flew out between the 2 blue gold bricks. The 2 blue gold bricks instantly stuck together. Suemo didn't dare to pause, and sent out 5 spells according to the description on the jade scroll. The lights from the 5 spells accurately hit the merge point between the 2 blue gold bricks. When the last spell entered the 2 pieces of blue gold bricks, what appeared in front of everyone was a single piece of blue gold brick. It appeared to be one body, the surface as bright and smooth as a mirror without any gap. Yuan Jiang was so shocked he couldn't speak. It wasn't just him. All the other forging shio that were watching were left dumbstruck when they saw Suemo's skill with controlling fire. Suemo released a long breath. Good, he didn't embarrass himself too much. He felt slightly proud. Pointing at the big blue gold brick that had just been forged, he said, "Go try and see what the effect is." Yuan Jiang was startled out of his daze and hurriedly arranged for an assessment of the new blue gold brick. After a while, he ran back with an excited expression. Boss. Strong. It really is too strong. Suemo wanted to know the results. Hearing Yuan Jiang filled with meaningless words, he couldn't control himself. Tell me the result. There was still some hint of disbelief in Yuan Jiang's eyes. This is the strongest brick that this subordinate has ever seen. Definitely the strongest. We did a comparison with the best gold soup. Boss's fire paper method was about 2 times stronger than reinforcing with the gold soup. We also found when there is too much outside force, the entire blue gold brick would turn to powder, but before that, it never shows a crack. The ones made with the gold soup will crack at the mortar joints of the 2 blue gold bricks if the outside force is large enough. Hearing Yuan Jiang blab on, Zhuo Mo's head felt dizzy. He could only ask, so my method is better? Better. Much better. Yuan Jiang was so excited he couldn't control himself. The increase in strength that Boss method would provide to the city walls was greater than any method he knew. The other 2 people were also very excited. Zhuo Mo was very smug inside, and he did not feel much excitement. However, it was not hard for him to understand why Yuan Jiang and the others were excited. If they didn't like it, who would study something as obscure as city construction? When a breakthrough development happened in an area a person liked, no one would be able to keep their composure. Oh, you guys can study the remaining. I'm going to start the work. Zhuo Mo didn't plan on wasting time. Time was very expensive. The Ling power spat out of his hand and coiled around 20 blue gold bricks like a Ling snake. He directly put them on his shoulder. He felt his shoulders suddenly weigh down, his feet sinking into the earth. It was really heavy. These blue gold bricks were all forged from large slabs of bluestone. Even though the volume had shrunk, the weight had not lessened. If it was any other person, they would have been pounded into paste when the 20 pieces were put on their shoulders. Zhuo Mo steadied his body and released a breath. Pulling his leg out of the mud, he started to charge towards the foundation. Bam bam bam. Each time Zhuo Mo's step landed, the earth would shake. Everyone in the surroundings inhaled in shock. There were 2 Diana Xiao in the 2 platoons who had stayed behind. Seeing this in human feet, they were very embarrassed. Which motherfucker said that Boss was a sword Xiao? Chapter 253, Golden Crow Walls. The blue gold bricks were neatly stacked together. The flying fire paper spread out and rolled, sometimes as straight as a knife as it passed through the gaps between the blue gold bricks. Zhuo Mo's expression was serious, a faint layer of light in his eyes. The fire paper danced faster and left behind beautiful golden trails in the air. His Ling eyes and consciousness were stretched to their limits. No flow of Ling power in the surroundings could escape Zhuo Mo's perception. His hands were like flowers blooming. Zhuo Mo's well-practiced finger motions were completely used. His half-raised hands were always in the middle of countless afterimages that flickered in and out. Many shouja couldn't help but put down what they were doing to come watch. Occasionally, gasps would sound out from among the crowd. Everyone was intoxicated. These shouja were mostly non-combat production shouja. They were one of the classes that emphasized finger motions the most. Zhuo Mo's precise Ling power control did not waste one drop of energy. In their eyes, he was comparable to the most classic examples. This was an experience to be enjoyed. If Zhuo Mo moving the blue gold bricks previously had been the most basic and bare example of strength, then the grand finger motions and the amazing Ling power control now represented the highest levels of control and technique. It was the first time Zhuo Mo had tried using his consciousness and Ling Eye at the same time. After a very short amount of time, he felt the benefits. The world in his eyes had never been so lively and dimensional in his eyes. His consciousness could detect every detail of the objects in front of him, his Ling eyes could detect every change in the Ling power. He was almost able to see the patterns behind the walls. With a glance, he would know everything in his field of vision. This also caused his efficiency to skyrocket, and lead to the scene occurring right now. Yuan Jiang had lost all power of speech. What was happening before his eyes surpassed the limits of his imagination. With a speed visible to the naked eyes, the blue gold brick walls grew upwards. This kind of speed was outside of his knowledge. Even more, this was all done by a single person. This world was too insane. The last thread of his rationality caused him to look at the remaining blue gold bricks. He instantly shook and his soul came back into his body. Of the mountain of blue gold bricks that had been piled up before, there were not even 100 pieces left. He thought of his role as the supervisor and ordered people to transport blue gold bricks. Other people did not have Zhuomo's physical strength, and could only use talismans. Instantly, all the talismans were put to use. Flying swords, ling hos, jade scepters etc. all turned to a long line. Several bricks hung below each talisman. These bricks were way too heavy. After a few round trips, the blue gold bricks once again piled into a mountain. Yuan Zhang released a breath inside, and his expression relaxed. Just as Yuan Zhang's expression eased, Ji Wei and Sun Bao's expressions became nervous. The two of them had been entranced in Boss Grand Performance had suddenly reacted when they saw Yuan Zhang summon people to transport blue gold bricks. The two rapidly calculated how many blue gold bricks were remaining, and their faces changed. Based on Boss' terrifying speed, the remaining blue gold bricks would quickly be unable to keep up with demand. The two of them were responsible for forging. If something happened here, they could not deflect their fault. Previously, the two of them had feared Boss more than they respected him. Now that they had personally seen the abilities of Boss, they were full of respect to the point that they kowtowed. The more respect they held, the more they were unwilling to drag Boss down due to their own mistakes. The two of them exchanged a look and did not hesitate in herding off the forging shouja that were watching. Work. Immediately. Anyone that dares to slow down, will cut your wages. Those that are making blue gold bricks, listen. The wage for each piece is increasing by 50%. The two played good and bad, one punished while the other rewarded. The shouja that made blue gold bricks instantly ran off to work. They may have been motivated by Boss, or by the high wages, but each person was full of motivation. The camp was very busy. Ma Fan is so meddlesome. Lei Peng looked at the paper crane in his hands and muttered. He handed the paper crane to the platoon captain beside him in frustration. After the platoon captain finished reading, he couldn't help but ask, "What do we do?" Lei Peng said, frustrated, "What to do? Do according to what he says." Then he muttered, "This guy had been the corps before, he should know more." The platoon captain was used to Lei Peng's impatient tone. He knew that Lei Peng did not have malicious aims, but he was frustrated with having to take along greenhorns. He was an old member so he understood very well. Sometimes, even he would feel frustrated, much less a battle maniac like Lei Peng. As the order passed down, everyone's figures quickly disappeared. In a patch of wood about 200 li far from Lei Peng. "Can Ma Fan Darren's plan work?" the platoon captain asked Xia Shan uncertainly. Xia Shan smiled and replied, "He was the corps before. Of all of us, he received the most teachings from Gongsun Darren. None of us are likely to surpass him." "This is really a big plan," the platoon captain sighed. Xia Shan smiled and said, "Let's start." At the same time, more than 10 troops led by other people quietly hid in places about 800 li from Nanxing village. This distance was very well grasped. Usually, the range of scouting troops were around 1,500 li. This distance was about half of that. The suggestion Ma Fan gave them was to carefully sneak in and kill the little troops of shouja as they were coming back. The shouja that were coming back would not have much ling power after long-distance flight, and their combat power should be at a relatively low level. In the hearts of the shouja of Clear Sky Sect Outer Hall, this position was a relatively safe area. They would not be so high alert and may relax their guard. Of course, even more importantly, they could successfully reach the position of the plan. As long as they could do this, Ma Fan's string of plans had a high probability of success. In many people's view, Lil Miss campaign this time was slightly unexpected, but when battle started, they found that they were wrong. Lil Miss had done extremely detailed preparations. This was seen from the moment the first battle started. Wei Ran securely remembered Lil Miss's order. In the first charge, they did not use all of their power like they usually did. They only used the first charge of the 3-section wave killing charge. The third division he led was like a knife that had ran out of power, having cut only halfway into the enemy ranks. The faces of some of the other division leaders that were present all changed dramatically. The 3-section wave killing charge was to be completed all together. It was to be like a heavy blade, cutting everything in half. If it halted in the enemy ranks, and was surrounded in all directions, and if their side had lost the momentum, then it was an extremely dangerous situation. But Lil Miss did not even look, and continued to add large numbers of fighters towards the flanks of the enemy. After a while, everyone found that Wei Ran, who they thought would have lost many people, were only lightly damaged. Wei Ran's mission was to trap 16 Xiuzhe. These 16 Xiuzhe were the strongest power in the enemy ranks. It was not that their combat abilities were powerful, but the contribution they made towards their troop. These 16 people were a rare group, Seal Xiu. Because the attack had been extremely abrupt, these 16 Xiuzhe hadn't had the time to spread out before Wei Ran caught them all. Seal Xiu were not famed for their combat abilities, but they were skilled in using all kinds of seal curses which could dramatically increase the combat abilities of the Xiuzhe around them. The first people Lil Miss dealt with were them. He used Wei Ran to cut the connection between them and the other Xiuzhe. The balance of battle quickly tilted towards Lil Miss' side. The 16 Seal Xiu looked with terror at the enemy that surrounded them, their hands nervously grasping stacks of seal papers. The mood was extremely tense. One of the Seal Xiu couldn't bear it, the seal paper on his hand unconsciously lighting up. He then heard eldest Shixiang shout, "Don't attack." The presence of the sun golden crow, with the city walls as the center, rippled out towards the surroundings like a wave. Chapter 254, The Metamorphosis of Jade Metal had the completion of the city walls, and the apparition it caused motivated everyone. These were the smallest city walls they had ever seen, not even 10 zhang high. These were also the shortest city walls they had ever seen. However, at this time, these short city walls always attracted their gaze. The mirror-smooth blue-gold city walls faintly exuded the sun's warm presence. Whenever they raised their heads in the camp to look at the little city on the mountain peak, they seemed to be filled with inexhaustible strength. Every morning, the sunlight would form into a faint gold pillar visible to the naked eye and cover the little city. In the future, they would move in, living behind these kind of city walls. It would be very warm. Everyone thought on the inside. In this chaotic and cruel little mountain Jia, unconsciously, this little golden crow city had added a hint of warmth to their hearts. It was an innate desire for sunlight and warmth. Without any urging required, everyone worked furiously day and night. Suemo did not know any of this. He was still constructing the city, and forgot everything else. The completion of the city walls for the entire city construction was just the first step. The amount of work left was enormous. Yuan Jiang did not speak of the lack of manpower anymore. He did his best to point out the places boss needed to pay attention to. Every time his eyes glanced across the little golden crow city walls, he couldn't help but be entranced. This was the most beautiful and perfect city walls he had ever seen. He had exclaimed countless times inside. What amazed him even more was Boss' deep skill with formations. Boss was the most skilled formations Xiuzhe he had ever seen. The 10 zhang high city walls had a 20 zhang deep foundation. The entire city walls were one body. In the deepest part of the foundation, there were earth element formations carved every 2 steps. All of them were 4th grade formations. Earth vein root, granite steel overgrowth, and fire lotus foundation, were all arranged in a zigzag fashion. Whenever Yuan Jiang thought of the thought that Boss put into picking these 3 formations, he couldn't help but sigh in admiration. Earth vein root acted like 10,000 roots that deeply penetrated into the earth, unable to be broken. Granite steel overgrowth was an extremely obscure formation. It could cause granite around it to harden and would then continue to spread outwards like vines. Yuan Jiang felt slight pity. If clear sky sect did not exist, in 20 to 30 years, the entire Sky Star Peak's granite would be hardened. At that time, it would be impenetrable. What he felt was the cleverest was, Fire Lotus Foundation. Fire Lotus Foundation was an extremely common formation, mostly used in forging and dan making. It could form the base of a fire lotus. Lingdan and talismans would form on the lotus base. It was very creative to use it here. The walls of Golden Crow City was able to absorb Golden Crow fire. Over time, this would be a very terrifying prospect. These, lotus fire foundations, could continue to temper the walls. Even though the effects would not be evident, but as time passed, it would become significant. Even more, fire bore earth. The effects of the two earth element formations would also increase. It was a great pity. The more Yuan Jiang looked, the more he liked it. However, when he thought of the city walls becoming the main battlefield for Clear Sky Old Forefather, and being destroyed, he felt even more reluctant. Zhuo himself didn't feel anything. The inside of the city had been divided into districts. Places like the camp and residential areas had been completely left alone so they could build it themselves. What he was building now were the Formation Battle Watchtowers. Formation Battle Watchtowers were the most important battle units of each city. There would all kinds of offensive formations on it. With the Xiuzha inside it controlling the formations, it could attack the enemy. The formations inside the Formation Battle Watchtowers were all powerful offensive formations and usually needed many Xiuzha to work together. Other than the protection offered by the city wall defenses, the Formation Battle Watchtowers were one of the most important combat units that determined whether the place could be held. At the beginning, Zhuo didn't even think of building a big city. The only purpose of this little city was combat. Other than the necessary living spaces, Zhuo decided to use all other areas to construct the watchtowers. Facing a Jindan Xiuzha, it was not embarrassing to win through numbers. The construction of Formation Battle Watchtowers was not difficult, and it was not a secret. The jade scroll that Yuan Jiang had given him had extremely detailed descriptions. Of course, he didn't follow exactly what the scroll said, those were just mainstream knowledge. If he wanted something good, he had to put in effort himself. Before the Formation Battle Watchtowers were built, Zhuo's jade metal head Mo physique unexpectedly had a breakthrough. The breakthrough was very sudden this time. There was no warning. Even Pu Yao did not detect it, much less Zhuo who had been in the depths of studying Formation Battle Watchtowers. The metamorphosis of a Mo physique was unexpectedly terrible. Just as he was pondering Formation Battle Watchtowers, a cloud of bloody mist suddenly exploded out of Zhuo's body. The eyes of the female Xiao that was closest to him suddenly lit up with a strange purple light. Her body did not move. The powerful bloody mist charged to 2 steps in front of her before it seemed to be stopped by an invisible wall. The empty eyes of the 3 golden armor guards lit up. The 3 of them raised their swords and blocked the charge of the bloody mist. Yuan Jiang, who was not far from Zhuo, did not have the strength to resist. It was like he had been hit with a heavy hammer. He felt a great force pass over, sending him flying and into unconsciousness. This was just a start. Bam bam bam. Clouds of bloody mist continuously exploded out of Zhuo's body. Each burst contained extremely powerful momentum. The ground under his feet had already turned into a deep hole due to the explosions. The golden armor on the 3 golden armor guards rattled. They hurriedly braced their waist and legs, the light in their eyes were at a maximum as they managed to resist the charge of the bloody mist. When the 3rd wave of bloody mist exploded, the energy contained in the bloody mist reached a terrifying level. The 3 golden armor guards could not block it. Dong dong dong, they were pushed to 15 steps away before they could steady their bodies. From beginning to now, the female Xiao did not move. The exaggerated black mask and the eerie purple pupils flashed in and out of sight in the bloody mist. She suddenly reached out with her right hand and grabbed at the bloody mist. The bloody mist in front of her instantly condensed, and a bean-sized blood bead appeared in her hand. After that, both of her hands grabbed at the empty air. All of the bloody mist had been condensed into blood beads. Ding ding dong dong. The blood beads rang out as they fell onto the ground. The bloody mist had been swept away and revealed Zuomo's true body. Zuomo's body was covered in gore. It was as though the gore was alive as it slowly moved. It looked extremely terrifying. The female Shou silently looked at the bloody figure of Zuomo. In Zuomo's sea of consciousness, Pu Yao couldn't help but sigh with shock, such a powerful girl. He then lowered his head, and said to himself, so quickly. Is this body really this suited to this path? He suddenly seemed to detect something and raised his head. The black clouds around the gravestone had disappeared. The purple light in the eyes of the female Shou suddenly exploded. A hint of black energy suddenly appeared in the gore wrapped around Zuomo's body. The threads of black energy were like strands of hair and also extremely hard to notice. The female Shou stared for a while before the purple light in her eyes gradually dimmed. The gore on Zuomo's body moved restlessly for more than 4 hours before gradually calming down. After 4 more hours, a person-high cocoon of blood appeared in the deep hole of the ground. The second batch. The platoon captain was very excited. Adding on the group that they had just destroyed, they had successfully ambushed 2 groups of Clear Sky Sect Outer Hall Shouja that had been returning. Their luck was pretty good. From the information passed on through the paper cranes, several platoons hadn't encountered anyone at all. Continuous battle caused their platoon's shouja to quickly grow. Their combat had finally shown some hint of organization. For this, they had paid the price of 3 people. Ma Fan inattentively made a sound in response. He was pondering what he may have not considered in his previous idea. Mrs. intentions were very clear. Do their best to delay the enemy so that the enemy could not find their main camp, and try to earn more time for the construction of the city. On the other hand, they couldn't fight too fiercely, causing Clear Sky Old Forefather to come out personally. No one could deal with that. There were too many places that had to be measured in here. But from the present situation, the development of the situation had not left his predictions. Holding a piece of green grass in his mouth, he raised his head to look at the faraway sky. The battle had just begun. Nanxing Village. 10 little troops have been killed. Ah! You group of trash. 200 people. That is 200 people. Even if it was 2 motherfucking stones, there would be a sound if they're thrown into the water. Under great pressure, He Xiang finally lost all restraint and bellowed. The subordinates shivered, and the other elders remained silent. Malicious joy came into many people's eyes. He Xiang suddenly turned his head, and looked at the other elders. His eyes were filled with blood, his features twisted, the tendons in his head bulging like earthworms. His voice was deep like a lion that had been forced to death's door. Alright, you guys are just watching. Ha, you really think that only I would be punished if we don't do this right? None of you will be able to escape. Don't forget Old Forefather's temper. The faces of the other elders all changed uncontrollably. He raised his head, and said in a voice full of scorn and disdain, I'm the chief elder, but is nothing to Old Forefather. You guys, which of you cannot be replaced? Don't forget, it is very easy for the outer hall to hire shouja. Would it be difficult to find new elders? You all should be clear how important this is. If we cannot even accomplish the first task for the outer hall, ha! Everyone saw the terror in each other's eyes. Even though it was Chief Elder that was in control of the outer hall right now, but if Old Forefather really investigated, none of them would escape. What they were doing now was related to the foundation for the dominion of Clear Sky Sect in Little Mountain Jie. One elder stood up. That's right. This is not the time for us to fight among ourselves. We should cooperate, and overcome this obstacle. I agree, another elder stood up. Other elders continued to stand and express their agreement. Second elder's expression was slightly ugly, but he also stood up. I also agree. Chief elder's anger instantly disappeared, and even had a smile on his face. As long as we cooperate, we will definitely capture this group of clowns quickly. Of the 7 elders, except for him, they were all Ningmai third stratum experts. The mood of Nanxing village had suddenly changed. All the people walking on the street were ordered to return home. All flow of resources were stopped, and all people were banned from travel. Even though the leaders of the various factions objected, but they were instantly suppressed. They were put under house arrest. The Clear Sky Sect Outer Hall sent down its first 10,000 fire emergency order. The Outer Hall Xiuzha that had been prepared to send out to other places in Little Mountain Jia were all summoned back. The Xiuzha number in Nanxing village continued to increase. The leaders that were under house arrest felt insecure when they saw this and were wise enough to stay in their homes. The enormous Outer Hall gathered strength at an unprecedented efficiency. Editor. Chapter 255, New Sky Glass Waves. Mo once again broke out of the cocoon. His body seemed to have changed again. The skin that once had a black sheen now seemed slightly transparent like black jade. There was none of the shock that came with the first transformation. Mo examined his body with curiosity. Thankfully, there was not much change on his face. It wasn't that he was afraid of becoming ugly, but it was not a good feeling when the face he had recently adjusted to had become strange once again. He tested his strength. It was about 2/10 greater than before. Not bad, he thought inside as he started the Sky Wave Fist scripture. He wanted to see how many revolutions his arms could tolerate this time. 14 revolutions had been the limit when he had faced the bloody horned serpent last time. He started the Sky Glass Wave, and the Ling power quickly circulated through his arms. Starting from the 7th revolution, his arms started to feel inflated. After 10 revolutions, the feeling of inflation in his arms became more evident. After 12 revolutions, the feeling of inflation became even more pronounced in his arms. After that, with every new revolution, the feeling of inflation should increase greatly. When it reached 12 revolutions, Mo's mind jumped. It was possible. Even though his arms felt very inflated, but there was still leeway compared to last time. He continued to channel Ling power. He wanted to see where the limits of his new body were. 14 revolutions, there was a pain caused by the feeling of the pressure. 16 revolutions, Mo felt like his arms were going to explode. Threads of light flooded out of his arms, and swam along his arms like little snakes moving about. It was the first time Mo had seen such a thing. He knew that if he completed 2 more revolutions, the Sky Glass Wave would probably undergo another change. He weighed his options. He felt that he could still tolerate more. Bracing his heart, he continued to channel Ling power. 17 revolutions, the feeling of explosion in his hands became even stronger, and a needle-like pain appeared. The light of the fist energies around his arms became even thicker, and the rate of movement increased. The air around him did the exact opposite, their rate of flow was decreasing continuously. At 18 revolutions, the lights that swam around his arms increased in speed, and showed extremely unique whirlpool fist energies. Due to the increase in speed, the thread-like fist energies that had been wrapped around his elbow joints quickly were pulled astray. They were like springs that were pressed down by an invisible force. The spring discs that were now flat quickly revolved with amazing speed at Mo's fists. Mo knew that this was his limit. The air around him had stopped flowing as though it had turned solid at this moment. Without a hesitation, Mo raised both his hands, and shouted, "Go!" The center of the disc-shaped fist energies seemed to have been heavily struck and turned into the start of a helix that flew out with astounding speed. There was no sound, no howling. When the 2 fist energies left his fists, they seemed to have disappeared into the air. They were so quick that Mo himself did not catch them. As these 2 fists were released, the Ling power and strength in Mo's body seemed to have been completely pulled out. Extremely sore, he collapsed onto his bottom on the ground. After a while, he managed to struggle up and sway over to inspect the result of his 2 punches. 20 zhang away, 2 holes bored into the earth, each was more than 2 zhang in diameter. They were so deep the bottoms could not be seen. Zhuo couldn't help but show slight joy as he gaped. It wasn't possible to create this kind of clean and deep hole, like a knife cutting tofu, with just raw strength. The power of the 18 revolutions sky glass wave was definitely more than twice as powerful as the 14 revolutions one. Because there were not quantifiable measurements, he could only make a general estimate on its power. Zhuo instantly became happy. Pu Yao's methods were quite painful, but they were very effective. After this metamorphosis, the strength of his body had taken another leap forward. Otherwise, it wouldn't have stood up to support the 18 revolutions. The technique required in the sky glass wave was not high, but starting from 12 revolutions, the demands on the body rapidly increased with each additional revolution. This jade metal head really lived up to being Mo physique, it was full of potential. Zhuo wondered inside about going to ask Pu Yao some other time to see if he could press some more out. When he had been at Wukong Mountain, when he heard the mention of Yaoma, he would fear it. Now that he had experienced more, he didn't have much feeling. What Mo physique, what Yao art? When it was used, where was the energy of Yaoma? He didn't feel that his personality had become evil and vicious. As he experienced more, he gradually could see clearly. The so-called Yao, Mo, and Xiuzhe were just different cultivation paths for different innate talents. Like the Yao, born from flora or the essence of the world. They were born understanding the power of the world, and naturally learned how to use their consciousness as a lever to manipulate the power of the world. Mo were born from intelligent beasts, with strong bodies and a Mo matrix. It was no wonder they walked the path of awakening the potential of their bodies. And Xiuzhe were humans. Their bodies were not strong, not close to the world, but they were intelligent. It was rational they would walk the path of assimilating outside forces to their benefit. He gradually understood the hatred between Yaoma and Xiuzhe as he spent this time in Little Mountain Jie. The Ling power that Xiuzhe cultivated emphasized using outside objects. They needed all kinds of resources. Jingshi required Jingshi mines, Ling grains, and other Ling grasses needed Ling veins. Forging talismans required all kinds of materials, needed ores, and other precious treasures of the world. But no matter if it was ore, or Ling veins, all of them needed tens of thousands of years to mature. Even those treasures of the world usually needed several thousand years before they would mature. But who could wait for more than 1,000 years? Xiuzhe could only continuously expand out and find new jie. However, this meant conflict with Yaoma could not be avoided. In here, it couldn't be said who was right or wrong. No matter if it was Xiuzhe or Yaoma, these were all for their existence, for development. Zhuo did not have good feelings about Yaoma but held no dislike. Things like wars were not something a little character like him had to worry about. After gradually understanding this, Zhuo did not have any more mental barriers about cultivating Mo skills and Yao arts. Without mental barriers, his progress in cultivating was naturally quick. Before, he had always struggled with the concept of talent. His talent with swords was really very average. If Pu Yao did not exist, he may never have cultivated to sword essence. That was a sword essence created through being cut up thousands of times. His talent with formations and the 5 elements were more exceptional. Now he felt that while talent was important, but many things could not be explained by talent. Comprehension was comprehension, incomprehension was incomprehension. If one did not have talent, they would still be strong if they could comprehend. If they had talent, and did not comprehend, there was no use. Talent could increase the probability of comprehension but it was not always a certainty. There wasn't just talent, even talismans and spells could be included in this. Even if the grade was higher, and the power was greater, but it depended on whether it was suited to oneself. The Sky Wave Fist Scripture was just a 3rd-grade fist scripture without any exceptional qualities. For the great majority of Diana Xiu, it was very normal in terms of power, but in Zhuo's hands, it was incredibly powerful. It was not that other Diana Xiu could not understand the profoundness of Sky Glass Wave, but that their bodies just could not tolerate the shocking burden that came with the 18 revolutions of Ling power. Suemo comprehended many things. The 18 revolution sky glass wave increased Suemo's confidence, but he only had the power for one attack. Jindan Shouja, like the clear sky old forefather, moved like lightning. It would be extremely hard to hit them. His anticipation of the formation he was going to set up increased. He suddenly saw the scattered blood beads beside the feet of the female Shio and made a sound of surprise. Where did these come from? The female Shio did not respond. Suemo muttered inside but still collected the blood beads. The blood beads sparkled as though each one was made from fresh blood. When held in his hands, he felt a feeling of closeness. Facing the silent female Shio, Suemo did not have any ideas. The female Shio of unknown name and history was a mystery all over. As to whether or not she was mute, that was just ridiculous. With the female Shio's deep cultivation, even if she was born with a natural deficiency, there were countless ways to fix it. She didn't speak, there was only one reason. She didn't want to speak. The only person that Suemo could ask was Pu Yao. He had too many questions he had accumulated. Pu Yao was not surprised at Suemo's arrival. I know what you want to ask. He was sitting cross-legged on the gravestone, lazily supporting his chin with his hand. The gleaming black sleeve naturally fell down, and revealed an arm that was even paler than that of a woman's. The right bloody pupil that was not covered by his hair was slightly open. The greatest unique quality of the jade metal head is equilibrium. Even though none of it is outstanding, but it is pretty good in every area. In this period of time, you had been practicing with your body, Ling power, and consciousness. It has matured. Several questions came into Suemo's mind after Pu Yao's words. I know the relationship of Ling power and the body, the Ling channels. But what relationship is there between the consciousness and the body? The jade metal had matured. What do you mean matured? Pu Yao rolled his eyes. He had gotten used to Suemo frequently asking him questions he found extremely idiotic. How can there not be a connection? Those with strong bodies usually have strong minds. Ling power, body, and consciousness, the three of them come from the same source. Do the Shouja of present not know this? Suemo's face was already as thick as city walls. He snickered, and was not angry at Pu Yao's mockery. Then what about the level up of jade metal head? Mo physique, there was no maturity in the beginning. At the start, everyone just found that some special bodies were very suited to practicing Mo skills. Over time, everyone called them Mo physiques. After that, about tens of thousands of years, I'm not too clear about Mo's history. Oh, don't think that Shouja have the longest history. The history of Yama is much longer than the history of Shouja. Suemo found that Pu Yao showed hints of going off topic and hurriedly pulled him back. Then why was there leveling up later? Because of advancement, Pu Yao said, then continued, jade metal head is captain level, and star and moon wheel is colonel level. This is called advancement. Maturation. Mo physiques are very special kinds of bodies, but they have a common quality, they can grow. Isn't it interesting? Having Mo physique, it does not mean that your body is stronger than other people, but that you have more potential than other people. I seem to understand a bit. Potential needs to be stimulated before it can turn to strength. Pu Yao nodded, right, that's the idea. Maturation, it means the degree that the potential of your Mo physique has been expressed. Maturation and advancement have a strong connection. Only Mo physiques of sufficient maturity can advance. In other words, even if I can cultivate to moon soul, if my maturation is not enough, I cannot cultivate to star and moon wheel. Right. There is much scholarship associated with the advancement of Mo physiques. There are many paths that jade metal head can advance to. Star and moon wheel is only one of them. For example, there is also the mountain fiend route that emphasizes strength, the clear wind fighter that emphasizes lightness and agility. They had explored many kinds of weird advancement pathways. I only know the generalities. Then what is my maturation right now? Suemo hurriedly asked the question he was most concerned about. Chapter 256, Variable, U? Just first maturation. Pu Yao looked at the anticipation on Zhuo Mo's face, and did not hesitate in his blows. Basically, advancement is only possible at third maturation. Little bro, it's early for you. Hearing this, Zhuo Mo couldn't help but feel disappointed. Why is advancement this difficult? Difficult? Pu Yao smirked coldly. What difficulty is this? Good things are not so easy to get. That's true. Zhuo Mo thought and found that it was right. He still remembered his time when he planted ling grains. Not talking about those good items, but even for those spells to reach a grade, at that time, he had to put in all of his energy to get. His days had only gotten better after he had met Pu Yao. Pu Yao would occasionally do something bad to him, but Zhuo Mo never really took to heart. Without Pu Yao, he would still be an outer sect disciple of Wukong Sword Sect. His attitude towards Pu Yao and the mysterious gravestone were the same. He could accept everyone making some transactions. To receive good things, he had to pay a price. This was reasonable, a matter of consent. But if the other was going to force him, he won't take it. What are these blood beads? Nothing, just the beads made from your essential blood. Zhuo Mo instantly jumped in fright. My essential blood? What time? How come Ji didn't know? He looked at Pu Yao with slightly unfriendliness, his tone changing. Had this guy done something again? None of Ji's business. Pu Yao rolled his eyes and mimicked Zhuo Mo's tone. Your woman did it. Ji's woman. Zhuo Mo stilled. When did Ji have a woman? The one wearing the mask. Pu Yao undoubtedly had extreme talent in being a ruffian. As he learned a little bit, the disrespectful attitude was born. He clearly was a high-grade ruffian of high status and identity, with some dignity and laziness. In comparison, Zhuo Mo with his twisted features and wiry hair was like the ruffians that ran about the streets with bricks. When did she do that? Zhuo Mo furrowed his brow. Don't be unable to recognize people's aid. Pu Yao unconcernedly glanced and then yawned. He lazily said, received the benefit and still pretending to be good. Mo physiques will change during maturation. Oh, you were quite fierce, played with essence blood explosions. The other is very good, and help you condense them into blood beads so it wasn't a waste. However, she really is a powerful girl. Zhuo Mo's expression instantly became awkward. He had always been full of suspicion towards this woman of unknown origins. What's the use of this? The practical Zhuo Mo quickly pulled the topic onto the blood beads. There are many uses. If you cultivate Mo skills with blood and fiends, it is a very rare treasure. Right now, I can't think of any, Pu Yao said irresponsibly. Coming out of the sea of consciousness, Zhuo Mo coincidentally saw the female Xiao. It might have been Pu Yao's words, but he suddenly found her much more pleasing to look at. Thank you. He raised the blood beads, and thanked the female Xiao. He knew the female Xiao definitely wouldn't respond. After showing his appreciation, he turned and went back to the work of building the city. Zhuo Mo didn't know that just as he turned around, a purple light flashed across the eyes behind the mask. Gong Sun Cha gazed at the changes on the battlefield. He was continuously trying out new tactics. Any battle tactic, from seeing it, to familiarity, to understanding, the entire process required spending a lot of effort and thought. Even more important was actual use and experimentation. In the war chess, Pu Yao had shown many kinds of battle tactics to Gong Sun Cha. Each tactic had its own qualities, but not every tactic was like the 3-section wave killing charge, being able to be used after just trying it out. The tactics related to the mixture of people, and the structure of the troops. In the war chess, there was only Yaoma. To say of nothing else, the combat methods of Yaoma and Xiuzhe were extremely different. Just adapting the tactics over to use was not going to work. However, after being continuously abused by all kinds of tactics, Gong Sun Cha's knowledge was much broader. No one told him what should be. He could only experiment to increase how long he could stand up under Pu Yao's hands. Mimicking, concluding, and experimenting. If it was a normal person, after they had a sweet taste of the 3-section wave-killing charge's sharp blade, they would naturally worship it as the truth, the strongest weapon. However, Gong Sun Cha was continuously experimenting with different tactics. Because it was difficult to find jade scrolls on battle formations, he had even asked Zhua Mo in hopes of finding more battle formations. Unconsciously, he walked onto a path that had surpassed what everyone imagined. About 20 li from them, there were 2 Xiuzhe roaming about, watching the changes of the battlefield from a distance. Gong Sun Cha ignored them. Each time they fought, they would encounter scouts like these from other factions. These scouts were extremely skilled in flight. They would only watch from afar. If they saw the situation wasn't right, they would instantly get on a sword and fly away. There was no way of dealing with them. So even though the scouts had been discovered, Gong Sun Cha only ignored them other than preparing the necessary defenses to stop these scouts from participating in the fight. However, the 2 people that were watching were not scouts. Jiang Wei was a leader of a faction. Previously he had not noticed Gong Sun Cha. However, he had become alerted when Gong Sun Cha had plucked up several of the other factions in succession. He wasn't unfamiliar with these factions. They had interacted before. Even though Gong Sun Cha was still a distance away from his base, but he felt unsafe. So he had followed his subordinate and pretended to be scout to personally see this mysterious troop. "Boss, that's them." His subordinate pointed at Gong Sun Cha's group far away. Jiang Wei made a sound of acknowledgement. However, his heart was beating rapidly and his expression changed slightly. The battlefield seemed entrenched and chaotic, but to become a leader, how could he not have some good eyes? This mysterious group had clearly taken the lead. Right now, they were just playing with the other side, like a cat playing with a mouse. But after a while, he flinched with shock. That wasn't right. It wasn't playing. The chaotic battlefield gradually cleared up because this group started to organize themselves, and traces of organization. As he continued to watch, Jiang Wei's face paled, while his heart continuously dropped. This group's organization and tactics were beyond his imagination. These guys were trying new tactics. Their chaos was not created by the enemy, but by themselves. As they familiarized themselves with their new tactics, the battlefield quickly turned clear. He recognized the other side of the battle, Mustache Wang. Mustache Wang's conduct was extremely powerful, and skilled in battle. He had a group of lawless fighters under his command. When he saw the other, he had to call the other Wang Ji. But someone as powerful as Mustache Wang was being used by the other to try out battle tactics. He actually was not able to resist. Watching as Mustache Wang charged left and right with his band, but appearing as though he was sinking in the bog without a way out, a hint of sorrow came into Jiang Wei's heart. This group was too strong. Their cooperation was very high. It wasn't how smooth or grand their tactics were. In reality, he had seen the unfamiliarity in their cooperation at first glance. It should be a kind of tactic they had never used before. Mustache Wang did not lack skill. He had found the enemy's flaws several times, but just when the balance was to be upset, this group would use a different kind of battle tactic. That was the battle tactic they frequently used and were familiar with. It was astoundingly keen. Mustache Wang's furious counterattack would be torn to pieces in moments. Right after, this group would also return to their unfamiliar and new battle tactic in search of familiarizing their cooperation. And so it repeated. It's really terrifying. Jiang Wei muttered to himself. The subordinate didn't understand why leader would say it was scary. In his view, the 2 sides had fought for this long before this group had secured the advantage, they were not as strong as they were rumored to be. Jiang Wei did not explain. He rejoiced inside that he had made a correct decision today by coming. A hint of a smile finally came to Gong Sun Cha's lips. The Xiuzhe under his command finally found rhythm with his new battle tactic. Any kind of battle tactic, no matter how well people trained, was discounted in power unless they went through true battle. The situation on the battlefield had tens of thousands of variations. It was completely different than normal training. Just copying what they normally practiced was useless. As Lil Miss smiled, the rock in the hearts of the Shouja beside him finally landed. The battle quickly ended. They had captured about 150 Shouja. Seeing the dense black patch of Shouja beside them, he couldn't help but rub his forehead. How many Shouja have we already captured? 1,115 people, the subordinate gave a precise number. After some thought, Gong Sun Cha ordered, transport them back. It is not safe to take them with us for each battle. Send a division. Zhuimo was not here and could not put Jinji in these captives. Due to that, he could only take all their talismans and send people to guard them. Some of the Shouja had been directly taken into the troops like those Seal Xiu, and 3 Sword Xiu who had comprehended sword essence, Mustache Wang among them. These captives were very docile. Every 2 or 3 days, they would see Gong Sun Cha and the others defeat a faction. Naturally, everyone was docile. They looked fearfully at the remaining 300 Shouja. Even though their own numbers were 3 times that of Lil Miss, but no one dared to disobey. Before this, they had never thought there would be such a terrifying army. Of course, the Shouja who had seen the Yao army would say the Yao army were the most powerful. But even those people had to admit that this troop was the strongest troop they had ever seen other than the Yao army. The subordinates had long ago suggested to Lil Miss to send the captives back. No one felt it was too few for 100-something people to transport more than 1,000 captives. This mission landed again on Wei Ran. Lil Miss felt that while Wei Ran's individual strength was average, but his mind was good and he was calm. This was a person worthy of nurturing. Truthfully, Wei Ran wasn't quite willing. He was enjoying the fight. If he had to transport the captives, wouldn't he fall behind the others? He had just gotten a taste of the new battle tactics. However, he did not dare to disobey Lil Miss commands. He could only lead his subordinates and dejectedly go to transport captives. Looking at a portion of the troop transporting a dark patch of Shouja, Jiang Wei first stilled and then instantly understood. He couldn't help but shake his head. In his view, if they included these captives in the troop, it would actually cause the battle abilities of this terrifying troop to decrease. As long as one had these 300 people, where couldn't they go? Maybe they had other ideas, Jiang Wei thought. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. A daring idea came out. Chapter 257, One Small Step. He Xiang's face was tight, but in reality, his mood was not as terrible as he displayed. The members of the outer hall were continuously gathering, which allowed the leaders of the factions in Nanxing village personally see the strength of the outer hall. Everyone was in danger now. Under this tense atmosphere, the secret alliance the faction leaders had brokered fell apart without any attack. They all chose to capitulate, and He Xiang quickly got the price he wanted. Now, he only needed to catch the group of troublemakers before he would accomplish his goals. Looking at the Shouja that covered the sky above Nanxing village, the cloud over He Xiang's heart swept away. The number of Shouja in the outer hall had reached a terrifying 3,000 people. Nanxing village was small to begin with. 3,000 Shouja flying in the air was like a storm cloud. In his view, such a strong power could dominate all of Little Mountain Jie. If it wasn't that old forefather had personally made the captivity plan, he would have already suggested to take all of Little Mountain Jie into Clear Sky Sec's pocket. However, there wasn't much of a difference now, he thought contentedly. He had sent out large numbers of troops to search for the traces of those people. As soon as they found one trace, they could send out all their strength, and tear those damned people into 1,000 pieces. He believed that news would come very soon. Just as he was thinking this, an elder landed in front of him, and said excitedly, "We found the group. 200 or 300 people, up north, about 2,000 li from here. Our people have locked onto them." He Xiang was exhilarated, and said hatefully, "As long as we can find them, then they will definitely die. Get the scouts at the front to keep alert and don't lose them. It's our turn to attack." "Haha, let them see the power of our outer hall," this elder also laughed. "We'll destroy them." He Xiang was full of bravado. "We'll celebrate you when you get back." This elder was an ally he had been pursuing. "Ha ha. Wait for my good news." This elder laughed proudly before jumping back into the air. The shouja filling the sky started to quickly gather. Nian Lu was just as discontent as Wei Ran. His feet stepping on a lotus flower, he flew with the wind. His snowy white robes now seemed gray and dusty. After that handsome and light-hearted face seemed somewhat slow-witted after eating wind for more than 10 days. The platoon captain beside him also had an expression of dissatisfaction. "This group of bum beetles, they are so annoying. We have to even talk to them every day, but it's still those old faces, there's nothing new. But they don't have it easy either." The last words were full of emotion. He turned and hollered at the shouja beside him, "All of you, stay alert. Don't blame my flying sword if you don't listen." Beside him, other than his own subordinates, there were almost 200 unfamiliar shouja. These shouja all had their heads hanging down without energy. These were the shouja that they had captured when they took the time to especially sweep up 2 factions. The sweep had been done together by Lei Peng, Zhong Ru, and himself. Nian Lu's luck had been the worst and had lost in drawing straws, so that the most depressing job of baiting the enemy had fallen to him. These captives seemed to have extremely well-prepared Ling armor, but other than Ling armor, all other talismans and flying swords had been taken away. Just like this, Nian Lu led a platoon and 200 shouja as he flew openly towards the north. To make sure the other side didn't lose track of them, they had to maintain a moderate speed. What was most depressing was that he could not attend the upcoming battle, he could only continue to travel away. The greatest tragedy of life was this. Nian Lu said with sorrow and anger, slow down, don't let them lose track." At the base of a mountain about 400 li from Nanxing village was an extremely well-hidden mountain cave. "What are we waiting for? We're just guarding this place that even the birds don't shit, when can we go and do something?" Lei Peng rumbled. Everyone ignored him. Zhong Ru was sitting and meditating, Xia Shan had his eyes closed to rest. The other platoon captain wisely did not interrupt. With so many of the old-timers here, he did not have a turn to speak. Ma Fan shook his head helplessly. But it was his idea. It was so troublesome. He drawled, soon. Lei Peng snickered and said, "Little Nian Nian is probably being blown with a refreshing breeze right now." Light laughter came from the other people. Even Zhong Ru showed a hint of mirth at the corner of his lips. After killing those little groups last time, during that period of extremely short chaos, they had quietly sneaked in. This trip had been 7 days. Their luck was pretty good. They had found an extremely deep cave. With some camouflage added, it was a very good ambush point. This place was also very close to Nanxing village, right under the enemy's eyes. It was perfect for being dark under the lamp. Xia Shan suddenly opened his eyes. The other people instantly had wary looks. Xia Shan said lightly, "They've come." All the shouja instantly stopped talking. Xia Shan even extinguished the small light spell inside the cave. The cave instantly became pitch black. After a while, everyone felt streams of consciousness and strange Ling powers sweep across their bodies. Fear rose in everyone's hearts. There were at least 2,000 people from Nanxing village that moved out this time. It could be seen that the outer hall had put a lot into destroying them. No one dared to move. All signs of life on their bodies disappeared. All breathing and heartbeats stopped. Even the temperature of their bodies decreased. They were like a pile of rocks. Ma Fan had taught them all a spell to conceal themselves from scouts since he was very skilled in concealment. To avoid attracting attention, they had not used any spell or formation to disguise the entrance of the cave. Formations were the best for disguise, but that was only for experts. If it wasn't a formation expert, the disguise formation setup would be eye-catching instead. They only used rocks and foliage to conceal and lessen the traces of themselves. They had also specially grabbed little animals like rabbits to put in the cave. There were too many caves in this area. Ma Fan had correctly predicted the other would not inspect the caves one by one. Wave after wave of surveillance continued for 2 hours. Even Xia Shan, with the highest cultivation, couldn't help but be shocked by the outer hall's strength. From the consciousness and Ling power that swept across their bodies, there were more than 10 Ningmai third stratum Shouja. He was certain that more than 7/10 of the entire Little Mountain Jie's Ningmai third stratum had sided with the outer hall. One Ningmai third stratum was not scary, but 10 of them was definitely a great power. If he was the commander, he definitely would arrange for the 10 people to be together. Powerful Shouja like this were terrifying when they were used together. Why had the Shouja who comprehended sword essence like him been arranged together? He hadn't understood in the past, but after following Lil Miss for a time, and personally experiencing it, he now understood the benefits. However, what he admired the most right now was Ma Fan's cautiousness. Under Ma Fan's persistence, they had dug into the cave to an extreme depth. Then used slabs of rock to seal the top of the pit. These granite stones were more than 10 zhang thick, and had almost tired them to death at the time. The entire cave was now divided into 2 levels. Those little animals lived on the top level. At the time, some people had muttered that Ma Fan was making a mountain out of a molehill. Looking at it now, these measures had saved their lives. What he didn't know was that Ma Fan was also feeling fear. If anything had gone astray with the measures, then they would have been sealed in. No one would have been able to escape. Even when all the scans had disappeared, they still did not dare to move. Everyone was terrified by what had just occurred. After 10 whole hours, they finally recovered from the false death state. Whoa, they are terrifying. At least 2,000 people. Lei Peng exclaimed, his face slightly pale. It's 3,000, Zhongru suddenly spoke, there is also 13 third stratum. Everyone's faces became slightly ugly. Xia Shan looked at Zhongru with surprise. He was shocked at Zhongru's sensitivity. They really find us worthwhile. Haha, Laozi was so frightened right now, Laozi's body is still somewhat soft. Everyone discussed loudly. They were slightly afraid and shocked, but they were more excited. The outer hall had found them important enough to send out this many people. In Little Mountain Jia, there was no faction other than theirs who managed to cause such a reaction. Most of these people were lawless fighters. Battle maniacs like Lei Peng were not rare. The more it was like the present, the more motivated they were. Ma Fan was not as crazy as they were. He managed to calm his heartbeat, and wiped the cold sweat. He had been the core for so long, but it was the first time he had encountered such a risky situation like the one just now. When are we moving? Lei Peng rubbed his hands excitedly, his eyes shining as he looked at Ma Fan. Ma Fan forcibly repressed the impulse to kill the guy and rolled his eyes instead. Do you want to die faster? They haven't gone far away. If they turn back, none of us will escape. Lei Peng realized that his question seemed like it was troublemaking, especially when he saw the gazes looking at him like they were looking like an idiot. He rapidly gave a bright smile. See, after being frightened by them, N's mind doesn't work properly. 5 days. After calming down, Ma Fan's head turned cold and rational. We only need to wait 5 more days. Even if they want to turn back then, it wouldn't be enough. Everyone, get a good rest these 5 days. Otherwise, you'll see the other people rampage while you falter, Xia Shan said with a smile from the side. Sound disappeared from the mountain cave. Everyone suppressed the excitement inside, and meditated. They were like a group of experienced hunters making their last preparations before closing the net. Jiang Wei took the jade scroll his subordinate had handed over. He had sent out the Xiuzhe that had been most skilled in concealment to follow behind Wei Ran's group from far away, and successfully located this group's main base. When he scanned the Jade Scroll, his body froze. In the mirage of the Jade Scroll, at the top of a mountain peak was a sun city made from blue gold. The sunlight was like a keen sword cutting the sky and landing on this city. The faint golden light emitted from the little city gave people warmth like the sunlight. Jiang Wei's heart seemed to be suddenly gripped by an invisible hand. At that instant, it stopped beating. After an unknown length of time, he slowly refocused. There was almost no Xiuzhe in the empty city. All the blood in his body went to his head. With a glance, he could see how weak the city was. Even the troop that had sent the captives back had thrown the captives to the camp, and instantly left. An uncontrollable greed and yearning filled every hair of his body. 1. The chapter title is the start of a Chinese idiom. Translated, it can mean, one small step can make a great difference, a small error can lead to a serious result. Chapter 258, Bao Yi explaining. Zhue Mo looked dumbly at the 1,100 Xiuzhe in front of him, his face slightly ugly. Seeing the signs, Wei Ran exchanged a greeting with Zhue Mo before decisively turning and leaving, disappearing in an instant. 1,100 Xiuzhe. They look very tasty, but in reality, they were a great problem. These people were docile right now, but if they had the chance, they would not be so. Why were the people under Gongsun Cha's command so obedient? Because Zhue Mo had put down Jinji in their bodies. Using an aura of domination, and causing the surroundings to swear fealty to you was just a joke. Any person who entered an unfamiliar power, especially as a captive, how could they so easily accept it in their hearts? Zhue Mo didn't even dare to be certain about the group that Gongsun Cha had. If they left Little Mountain Jia, how many would be willing to stay? Zhue Mo was too lazy to think of things like loyalty. In such turbulent times, that was nothing. His demands were very simple: listen to orders and don't make trouble. After breaking through Little Mountain Jia, everyone can pat their own butts and go off. However, even listening to orders and refraining from making trouble were not simple to do. Before, he had used Jinji to guarantee this, but even a Jindan would die from exhaustion if he had to put Jinji in 1,100 Xiuzhe. That method wouldn't work here. Fortunately, all of the talismans and flying swords had been clean off this group. They definitely wouldn't make trouble in the short term. Zhue Mo had had enough time to think of ways to resolve the problem. He first picked the Xiuzhe that were skilled in forging from the group and sent them to Ji Wei and Sun Bao. There were quite a few, almost 300 people. Of course, the great majority of them only had a rough understanding of forging. There were less than 40 that were truly skilled. To Ji Wei and Sun Bao, who were tight on manpower, they took all 300 people and more. Even rough work needed people to do it. Quickly, Zhue Mo found that the two were very good managers. No one made trouble, and no one slacked off. Everyone was furiously working. This puzzled Zhue Mo. Coincidentally, Bao Yi had come to find Zhue Mo to get more people. He was the quartermaster and stores keeper, and didn't have the time to do everything. Seeing that there were so many people here, he had ran over to ask for some. Zhue Mo asked him the question that had puzzled him. He could not understand it. Ji Wei and Sun Bao didn't have the ability to place Jinji, but those 300 Xiuzhe were obedient in their hands. Hearing this, Bao Yi smiled. Boss, this problem is easy. Here, I give him a wave, and he comes to work. If he doesn't do well, then I'll fire him. Then he snickered, but it's even easier for us. We can punish anyone that doesn't listen. Seeing Zhue Mo still filled with puzzlement, Bao Yi's mind jumped at the rare chance to show his face in front of Zhue Mo and patiently explained, Boss, don't look at just how many people they have. Haha, in reality, they are helpless in front of us. First, they are afraid. Why are they afraid? Their little lives are in our hands. If we order them to do something, they don't dare to leave it incomplete. Not every boss is as patient as you, boss, or as benevolent. He didn't forget to slightly flatter Zuo, and continued, first, we have to set the rules down, what they can do and what they can't. If rebellious ones come out, we erase them. In the short term, they won't dare to make trouble. After a while, we can pick obedient ones from them, and give them some sweets, like a team leader or something, so they will manage for us. These people that directly receive benefits will be directly connected to boss aims, and definitely will put their all in. Zuo was thoughtful. Bao Yi smacked his lips. Actually, with how generous boss is, the great majority aren't willing to make trouble. Those with ambition and talent chase greater stages of cultivation. They can see clearly that they aren't disadvantaged under boss's hands. Most of the people just want a pretty good life. We only have to guard against the few that have other aims. These people don't have any skill, but think they are extraordinary, and don't want to follow others. They are like shit. We shouldn't waste words with them, just chop them. Bao Yi's words enlightened Zuo. He had become too used to living by himself, and had never managed this many people. It was also his first time doing such a thing. After Bao Yi finished picking workers, Zuo called over the 2 platoons of Shouja that had remained to guard the camp. He announced strict rules with quite a few, execution without exception. The 2 platoons stared at each other as they listened. Boss was very scary when he really got serious. Then Zuo ordered the remaining 700 or so people to train under the 2 platoons. The high quantity of training made everyone's faces change. Even the 2 platoons that were responsible for teaching had ashy faces. Zuo's thinking was very simple. Wasn't it that he was afraid they would cause trouble? Then he would make an extremely arduous training plan. He didn't believe there was anyone that would have any other thoughts after they completed such a laborious training plan every day. As expected, after furiously training every day, the only thing that the Shouja all did after finishing was to collapse and sleep. The 2 platoons in charge were also exhausted. To guarantee normal alertness and safety, they had to take shifts. The only thing that did not change were the 3 golden armor guards that were quietly floating in the sky above the camp. Every gaze sent towards the golden armor guards were filled with fear. There were already a few troublemakers that had been chopped in half by the golden armor guards' exaggeratedly large broadswords. The ease had shocked every Shouja who had wavered. Zuo saw the situation was progressing well, and turned back to immerse himself in building the city. His new body was greatly improved. He was very satisfied with the power of the sky glass wave, and full of excitement towards building the city. In the sea of consciousness, Puya was slightly dumbstruck. He had assumed that building the city would torture Zuo to the point of death, but seeing the mania on Zuo's face, he suddenly realized he had underestimated Zuo. Under this guy's normal appearance was a heart that was just as perverse as his. Sky Star Peak seemed to resume its busyness, everything was on the right path. Big brother, where are we going? Jiang Hao asked with puzzlement. Big brother had gathered everyone up together, and traveled quickly and carefully, not leaving one person behind to hold the fort. You'll know when we get there. Jiang Wei, who was innately cautious, did not even tell his own blood brother. He wanted that Sun City. Jiang Hao was slightly discontent. Big brother, you can't even trust me. Seeing the dissatisfaction on his little brother's face, Jiang Wei thought since they were getting close, it didn't matter if the secret got out. After narrating what had happened before, he showed the Jade Scroll to Jiang Hao. When Jiang Hao read the Jade Scroll, he instantly sunk into extreme excitement. Brother, this city is great. It's 100 times better than our mountain camp. Jiang Wei's thoughts were more attentive. The majority of their forces have gone out. It is their most unguarded time. If we use the chance to take down the city, even if their primary force comes back, they can't do anything to us. That city might be small, but it definitely hard to conquer, easy to guard and hard to attack. How much farther? I can't wait. Jiang Hao rubbed his hands as he said. Almost there. Jiang Wei then said, tell everyone to be careful and conceal their figures. If we encounter other Xiuzhe, take all of them down. Ha, no problem. Jiang Hao excitedly rushed out with the order. After flying for a half day, they finally entered Sky Star Mountain Range. Sky Star Peak was in their sight. Everyone sighed with amazement at the little city under the sunlight. When they learned that their target this time was this little city, the mood instantly became excited, everyone's blood rushing. The experienced Jiang Wei waved a hand. Set up camp. Everyone, have a good rest, we'll try to take them down in one encounter. Seeing the other people immerse themselves in meditation, Jiang Wei beckoned over Jiang Hao and said in a low voice, take some people with you and inspect the surroundings. There was so many days between now and before, we don't want anything unexpected. Jiang Hao said unconcernedly, Big brother, you are too careful. We have 500 people, all of them experts. We aren't afraid of them. Jiang Wei's face darkened. Don't say things like this in the future. This group is of mysterious origins. Even if there isn't many people, but they are much stronger than us. If it wasn't that they didn't have many people right now, I wouldn't dare to target this city. Be careful, don't lose your life. Jiang Hao was extremely obedient of his big brother. He muttered inside, but still complied, running to find several Xiuzhe that were skilled in concealment to go scout with him. His personality might be rough, but he was very good at traveling stealthily. The 100 Ghost Night travel scripture that he cultivated was a 5th grade scripture. It was a pity that the version he obtained was not complete. There were many parts that were lost. But even so, it was much stronger than normal 4th grade scriptures. His body shifted, and turned into a shadow. A pair of eyes that lacked any life appeared in the shadow. The other people also changed. Some became wild cats, others night eagles, all kinds of shapes. Everyone cooperated well. After changing, they spread out, all of them traveling towards Sky Star Peak. Zuoimo finally finished the first formation battle watchtower. This formation battle watchtower was constructed of hundreds of formations. It was much better than normal formation battle watchtowers. From the beginning plans, to the construction, he had completed all of it. No one understood better than he did what he needed. Yuan Jiang looked entranced at the lonely formation battle watchtower. The formation battle watchtower was 15 zhang high, a section higher than the city walls. The entire watchtower was made up of blue gold bricks. From a technical standpoint, the entire watchtower was just a formation, or rather, an extremely complete miniature interlocked formation belt. Yuan Jiang could not understand many of the parts. This little interlocked formation belt was different than any other formation he had seen before. Was Boss at the level he could set up and match formations? Boss was just this old. However, after personally seeing so many exceptional qualities of Boss, he had started to become numb. Normal, would someone normal become a boss? He could only comfort himself so. Boss, this is a lightning formation, to show that he was not so ignorant, Yuan Jiang pretended and said. It's a hard thunder formation. Hard thunder. Yuan Jiang shook, that wasn't lightning, that was hard lightning. He forced himself to calm, can we try it out? I was just going to. Zuoimo didn't raise his head, inserting Jingshi in. Right now, we can only use Jingshi. In the future, he didn't say the remaining. Yuan Jiang did not notice it. Where to hit? Zuoimo looked around after putting in the Jingshi. Yuan Jiang suddenly saw a black dot in the sky. It was an eagle. He didn't hesitate to point at the eagle and say, there is an eagle there. Okay. Zuoimo also became motivated, and instantly activated the formation. The inner walls, ceiling, and floor of the watchtower that were filled with formations quickly lit up with a warm silver light. Chapter 259, meteor void fire, a hard lightning bomb floated in front of Zuemo. Without any visible action from him, with only a streak of silver lingering in his vision, the hard lightning seemed to disappear into the air. There was no earth-shaking roar, no oppressive presence. It was fast, so fast that Yuan Jiang didn't have the time to react. When he finally caught up, he hurriedly turned his head. The sky was empty. Nothing had been left. There was no explosion of blood and limbs, no smoke from being burned at high temperatures. The sky was light and clear as though nothing had happened. "We got it?" Yuan Jiang asked uncertainly. "Probably," Zuemo answered back just as uncertainly. The speed that the formation battle watchtower had formed the hard lightning was faster than he expected. He had almost made a fool of himself. Just as he had locked onto the target, the hard lightning had flown out. The two people looked around for a while and made sure they couldn't find that eagle before confirming that it really had been killed. "It seems that they will need to practice," Zuemo muttered. Yuan Jiang wasn't in a position to give a review. Even though boss said it was hard lightning, but he had not felt the rumored strong presence of hard lightning. Maybe this was a weakened version of hard lightning? He felt it was possible. It was a pity that it was just an eagle. If it was a much stronger Ling beast, it would be much easier to test its true power. At this moment though, boss formation battle watchtowers had a great advantage: speed. In the blink of an eye, a round of attack had been sent. "Boss, how many people can use the hard lightning at the same time here?" He decided to point out problems from a technical point of view. 10, all of them above Ningmai. On average, one hard lightning bolt will consume 5 jing of Ling power, Zuemo said. "I can only reach this level now. If I can do 2 jing of Ling power per hard lightning bolt, that would be good." 5 jing of Ling power. Yuan Jiang jumped in fright. This formation used up this much Ling power. That was not how much Jingshi it used, but the Ling power of Xiuzhe. It consumed a Xiuzhe's Ling power to activate the formation and to control the lightning. From a professional point of view, the formation battle watchtowers that boss had designed were placed in the ranks of failed products. Before, he had felt that the speed of the hard lightning formation battle watchtowers were at least an advantage. Looking at it now, it was a failure. The cultivation of a Ningmai first stratum was between 10 to 30 jing. Second stratum Xiuzhe between 30 and 90 jing. One hard lightning bolt consumed 5 jing of Ling power from a Xiuzhe. That meant a Xiuzhe at the peak of Ningmai first stratum could only shoot 6 hard lightning bolts, and a second stratum peak Xiuzhe could only shoot 18 hard lightning bolts. The quick attack rate of the formation battle watchtowers actually became its greatest flaw. It would only take a blink for the 6 hard lightning bolts to fly out. After the Ling power of the Xiuzhe was used up, the formation battle watchtower was just a watchtower. "Boss, the expenditure is too scary," Yuan Jiang decided to give a professional opinion. "We can completely use some formations with higher offensive power with such high Ling power expenditure. This is the strongest offensive formation that I can find." Zuemo spread his hands. "But our people cannot keep up. Their Ling power would be used up in a very short amount of time. After that, we will lose the ability to fight." Yuan Jiang struggled to persuade Zuemo geniuses were not all powerful, he thought inside. "Oh, that is a problem." Zuemo mused. His eyes suddenly lit up, and he clapped his hands, saying, "Ha, that's easy to solve. We have so many people, aren't there about 700 and so over there? Everyone can take turns. We only need 10 to a shift." The more Zuemo thought, the more excited he was. He said to himself, "By that time, I'll get them to train hard. 10 people to a team, they will take turns. We have the black processing meditation mats, it's fast to recover Ling power. If we stagger the time, one round will follow another. That way, we can attack unlimited times. That's right, our battle strategy is to win through numbers. If one person cannot kill him, 1,000 people will do it together." Zuemo gritted out the last words. Yuan Jiang gaped upon hearing this. So it could be like this. When he thought back, he felt that boss plan was plausible. Even though it was not so honorable, but these days, weren't people competing on their hooliganism? Other than shock, he became wary. He could not offend boss no matter what he did. Yuan Jiang didn't know if geniuses were gangsters, but when a genius became a gangster, then they would be a great gangster. This was his newest conclusion. A slender and blinding silver light flashed across the sky. Jiang Hao, who was in ghost form, suddenly froze. He instinctively felt fear from the presence of the silver light. That was the smell of lightning. Before he could react, he suddenly raised his head. In the sky, his fellow that had shifted into an eagle had disappeared. The ghost figure was shocked. He was greatly shocked. Damn it! How had the enemy found them? What terrified him even more was that the Xiuzha that had turned to the eagle seemed to have disappeared into thin air, and did not leave anything behind. That wasn't possible. That was a Ningmai second stratum Xiuzha. Even though he had shifted into an eagle which prevented him from using many spells, but his real body was still Ningmai second stratum. What spell could just erase a Ningmai second stratum Xiuzha without leaving a trace? None of the spells he knew of could do such a thing. At the same time, the other scouts that had also been moving forward also stopped. Had they been discovered? Everyone's heart was beating furiously. For scouts, if the enemy had their defenses prepared and they got too close, the chance they would return alive was pitifully small. The enemy clearly also had an extremely powerful and wondrous talisman, or spell. Their gazes turned to Jiang Hao. The urge to retreat came up in Jiang Hao's heart. He looked rough usually, but when he turned into the ghost figure, he was cunning and treacherous. If they keep on scouting now, he would most likely lose his life. That strange silver light definitely was his natural enemy. Just as Jiang Hao didn't know whether to advance or retreat, Jiang Wei, located not far away, was also alarmed by the hard lightning. Jiang Wei's expression was uncertain. The power inside the little city didn't seem to be as weak as he had imagined. The enemy had already found them. His thoughts were the same as Jiang Hao. He understood his plan had failed. There would be no meaning in sending out scouts now. He hurriedly summoned back his little brother. He just had this one little brother, and he cared very much for him. Dao Zi, take 100 people to see what they are made of. After some thought, he decided to probe them first. If the situation wasn't right, they could turn and run away. Unless it was the last moment, they wouldn't use their full power. This was his secret to surviving until now. All right. Dao Zi's figure was large, his face in a snarl, his beady eyes flashing with a vicious light. He was a great subordinate of Jiang Wei's. He was combative and fond of killing. When he went into a berserk rage, he never left anyone left alive. He was vicious to his enemies, and also to himself. He was vicious and did not fear death. Dao Zi quickly picked 100 people, and headed towards the little city atop Sky Star Peak. Since they had been discovered, it was not necessary to keep hidden anymore. Zuo was pondering the problem of the formation battle watchtowers and did not realize that danger was nearing. He suddenly felt that a light was flashing, and raised his head. He saw a strange purple light in the eyes of the female Xiu. Before he could respond, the female Xiu sudden flew up into the sky. Zuo hurriedly stood and also flew into the sky. When he saw the 100 people coming with murderous intent, his head rang like someone hammered it. Enemy attack. Before he could respond, the female Xiu had spread out her arms like a great bird and charged at the enemy. Zuo's expression changed dramatically. Danger. All of this happened extremely quickly, like a flash of lightning. When he managed to react, the female Xiu was only 500 zhang from the group. Dao Zi looked at the female Xiu coming closer and snickered, "It's a girl. Motherfuckers, no one can take this one from me." The other Xiuzha also snickered. At such a dangerous time, Zuomo's mind was blank. When he came back, he was already in midair. Everything in front of him slowed down. He could see the twisted smiles on the faces of these 100 shouja, could see the light of their flying swords increase, could see her worn sleeves flapping in the wind. Everything in front of him seemed to blur. Those twisted and vicious faces became blurred like the mist, the killing intent behind each blurred face was like a bloodthirsty Yao beast. The blue sky seemed to have been shadowed over. There was only that figure wrapped in torn clothing, her arms spread like a large bird filled with resolve and will, the snow-white bare feet that reminded Zuo-mo of the most perfect porcelain. He looked dazedly. What was in front of him was so slow that Zuo-mo could see so clearly. For some unknown reason, it was like a cord in his head had been plucked. Zuo-mo's eyes suddenly turned red, the desire for battle was like a rampaging wave of lava, like the flood bursting the dam, and took over his body in an instant, burning his body with pain. Kill! The deep howl sounded out like that of an ancient savage beast. All the Ling power in his body was channeled to the extreme, light suddenly exploding on his naked upper body. His skin became even more transparent like black jade, so much that it was possible to see threads of black energy that were continuously swimming under his skin. He suddenly leaped into the air. In the blink of an eye, he had flown up 100 zhang. His figure abruptly flipped upside down, and his legs pushed against the empty air. Pia! It was clearly void of any objects, but it was as though his feet had pushed against some invisible object and he shot off, full of force. Zuo-mo's figure changed directions and shot downwards, charging at the group of shouja with all his might. The chaotic turbulence boomed in his ears. His speed suddenly broke past his usual limits. The explosion completely separated him from the outside world. Every part of his body was trembling in either fear or excitement. Hiss hiss hiss. In the chaotic air flowing around his body, a hint of red suddenly appeared. Fire! It was fire. Zuo-mo's consciousness was like an invisible hand stimulating these tiny fire snakes. In the blink of an eye, the fire exploded. The chaotic air flows in the surroundings were like dry firewood. Countless fire snakes appeared and swam restlessly in the turbulent air flowing around Zuo-mo's body. In the air, the blinding fire light, and the deep sound of an explosion caused Dao Zi and the others to shift their attention to the fireball dropping from the sky. Dao Zi's expression suddenly changed, quick, spread out. Immediately after, everyone's expressions changed. The air around them seemed to solidify. Their bodies were tightly held by an invisible suction force. Meteor void fire. Motherfucking, with the booms from the explosions, dragging a long and blinding tail of fire, Zuo-mo was like a divine being smashing down with the force of 30,000 caddies. Chapter 260, the terrifying female show. The shouja that were at the front had already prepared their Ling shields, while the Ling armor on their bodies glowing prettily with light. However, these lights which usually gave them a sense of safety, now clearly reflected the terror on their faces. Many people couldn't help but raise their faces. With their extremely shaky vision, a fireball suddenly magnified and appeared in front of them in an instant. Boom! Zuo-mo heavily smashed into this crowd of people. The three people at the very front were like stone balls that had been swatted up. Before they could even grunt, they were nailed into the soil. Under this kind of blow, no shouja except those who practiced body cultivation could survive. The Ling shields produced by the Ling armor were like thin paper, torn to pieces by the knife-like air flows. Zuo-mo didn't feel well after the powerful impact. The flame around him instantly collapsed. At the same time, he sprayed out a ball of bloody mist. When the bloody mist landed on the red flames, the flames suddenly erupted. Some shouja who didn't dodge in time were swept by the exploding flames, and their expression changed. Void fire. The deadly void fire. Zuo-mo did not understand the power of his move, but there were a few in this group that recognized it. Meteor void fire. Other than its presence, which was as unstoppable as a meteor, half of its power was based on the void fire. Void fire was an extremely special kind of flame. It was born through the turbulence of air, as though it came from nowhere. Void fire was extremely hard to extinguish, especially since water elemental power was ineffective. Its other quality was it was extremely strong. The temperature was not high, but it could corrode the minds of people. The blood that Zuemo had sprayed out contained the essence of his own body. The blood caused the flame to grow, and 7 or 8 Shouja instantly were affected. A wound in the spirit was very painful. Several people instantly howled out. Not having used up all his power, Zuemo penetrated through the ranks of this group, and charged at the ground. After such a fierce impact, the burning blood slowly cooled down. Zuemo suddenly woke up. When he saw the surrounding situation, his scalp instantly tingled, and he felt bitter. This was dangerous. Was he crazy? Why had he just charged out? His expression was pale as he muttered unconsciously. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the quickly approaching ground and hurriedly adjusted his body. Dong! He hit the ground and was rooted in an extremely sorry position. Once he hit the ground, he plucked up his legs and started to run. What had just happened was like a dream. The only thing he was clear about was that charge that he had accidentally made was quite good, but the consumption of Ling power and consciousness was very high, both of them reaching a dangerously low level. If he didn't run now, what was he waiting for? The results of his body cultivation recently final showed their effects. Without the support of his Ling power, he actually ran faster on 2 legs faster than he could fly. Also, his grandiose meteor void fire attack that he just did had shocked everyone. No one dared to chase him. After panting and running for a while, Zuemo saw that no one was chasing him and finally stopped to catch his breath. That impact just now had also wounded him significantly. His entire skeleton felt like it was going to fracture all over. Why did he just charge over? It was an evil spell, it must have been an evil spell. Zuemo furiously thought about this question. It must have been that the female Shio had cast some evil spell on him. Otherwise, he definitely wouldn't have charged out. How could he do something like this, charging into the maws of death? There was a problem. There definitely was a problem. Panting heavily, he saw no one chasing over, especially when he saw the 3 golden armor guards and a platoon captain coming over with other people. Seeing that Zuemo was alright, the platoon leader sighed in relief. Boss, you are alright. The other platoon is recovering Ling power, and will come here soon. Zuemo waved his hand, his other hand braced on his knee as he panted, I'm fine, you guys go help that reckless woman. Yes. The platoon leader responded. Just as he raised his head, he froze on his spot. Boss, Zuemo found it strange hearing the platoon leader speak as though he was talking in a dream. When he raised his head, he saw the platoon captain's face filled with strangeness, dazedly looking behind him. He hurriedly turned over and followed the platoon captain's gaze before he also froze. In the sky, the female Shio was like a ghost that had no weight, lightly wandering around the enemy ranks. Her speed was not fast, her motions were not sharp, and there was no light of Ling power. But everywhere she passed, the enemy would drop like a dumpling into the pot, and then smashing into ground meat against the dirt. It was evil. A coldness sudden rose in Zuemo's heart. That was, too evil. What spell was that? What scripture? In this little while, there was only 30-something Shouja left scattered in the sky. Gulp. Zuemo's complexion was pale without any blood as he instinctively swallowed. The scene in front of him had no pressure and blinding light, no keen sword essence, no booming explosions, there was nothing. Her feet bare, she confidently passed between the people. The vicious Shouja dropped in front of her like sandbags, one by one. That pair of bare feet that Zuemo had sighed secretly over countless times, at this moment were giving off a dense deathly energy. The bone-aching coldness made Zhuemo feel as though his bones had also froze. He was like a statue, standing there with his mouth open. Beside him, the other Xiuzhe didn't dare to breathe and terror filled their faces. This was the strangest and most terrifying scene that Zhuemo had ever seen since he could remember. Even they felt fear, so those Xiuzhe that were on the receiving end, what kind of terror did they feel? Dao Zi, whose face had been filled with viciousness just a moment ago, seemed to have seen a ghost, his facial muscles continuously trembling. He turned and wanted to flee, but he felt he couldn't move, not even a finger. Time seemed to have frozen at this moment. The Xiuzhe were all stuck in the air, unable to move like puppets. That exquisite pair of porcelain bare feet would pass beside a person, and that person would drop from the sky. In the blink of an eye, in the enormous battlefield of the sky, there was no one left except the female Xiu. A deathly silence. The wind blew past. The female Xiu silently floated in the air. The sound of teeth chattering entered Zhuemo's ears. He turned around his face, and saw all the Xiuzhe beside him were trembling and their teeth chattering. Zhuemo had originally been feeling cold all over, his heart beating furiously. However, when he saw everyone's state, the terror in his heart suddenly became fainter. Jiang Wei and Jiang Hao's face were ashen, their bodies uncontrollably trembling. The Xiuzhe beside him were the same. The female Xiu suddenly turned her face, and looked towards them. Ah! A yell filled with terror suddenly sounded in everyone's ears. A Xiuzhe's face was twisted, his eyes bulging out, several streams of blood coming out of his nostrils and mouth. He froze in this position as he softly fell on the ground. That shriek had almost caused Jiang Wei's heart to stop beating. He just wanted to swear, but when he saw the person's state his heart was even more shocked. This subordinate had followed him for a long time, and had seen many kinds of situations. Today, he was actually scared to death. When he saw the other people, he knew if he ordered them to keep fighting, he would be the first person cut down. He glanced with terror at the strange woman that was wearing a mask and looked like a clown. He knew that he would never forget this strange figure in his entire life. Run! He suppressed the furious beating of his heart, and channeled the power to shout and wake everyone up. He turned and ran first. The other people were also frightened, their faces paling. Like birds alarmed, they turned to flee. The female Xiu did not pursue them, and only watched in silence. Under her pair of heart-shocking and soul-shaking bare feet were 100 corpses. Zhuemo didn't even know how he had returned to the city at the end. His mind was blank. The shock and blow left by that last scene had been too much for him. It wasn't just him. All the Xiuzhe of the city seemed to have lost their souls. They had personally seen the female Xiu's strange and unpredictable fighting. No one dared to raise their heads to look at the female Xiu, or to meet her gaze. Just like normal, the female Xiu stood silently near Zhuemo. In the sea of consciousness, Pu Yao's face was serious in front of Zhuemo. This was the first time Zhuemo had seen Pu Yao so serious. What spell is that? Zhuemo's tone was raw. Don't know. Pu Yao clearly had been frightened by the female Xiu as well. He said in a deep tone, I cannot think of any spell or secret method that is related. When I inspected her body, I found a strange power inside her body. Her body is clearly almost on the verge of collapse, it's packed with old wounds. Zhuemo thought for a moment and said, hoping to give Pu Yao some clues. If it is like that, it should be a kind of self-harm spell or secret method. These types of spells and secret methods are powerful, but they shorten the lifespan, Pu Yao said seriously. You have to be careful. Her origins are not simple. Careful. Zhuemo's face was more bitter than a bitter melon as he spread his hands. How can I be careful? Pu Yao didn't know what to say either. His complexion was not any better than Zhuemo. Meeting a person whose origins he did not know, and was not match for, made him feel defeat as one who had once been a Sky Yao. I wonder if we can ask her to help against Clear Sky Old Forefather. Zhuemo suddenly said. She's too young. Pu Yao shook his head. even if it is a self-harm spell, the time she has spent on cultivation is too short. She may be strong, but not comparable to Jindan. She can deal with Ningmai like chopping vegetables, but against Jindan, that's a different matter. Jindan and Ningmai is not a difference in the kind of power, but the difference in essence of power. Puyao continued, the difference of the essence is not something that can be overcome with other methods. Zuo found it was right after he thought about it. Tell me, did she use some kind of mental confusion spell? Zuo suddenly asked, why did I just charge out? I shouldn't have. I remember there was a purple light in her eyes. She definitely didn't use one. I'm clear about that. Puyao's answer was very confident, but then his voice was also filled with puzzlement, but I'm puzzled too. How come you just charged out? You are the one most scared of death. I feel the same. Zuo did not feel embarrassed and nodded his head. She didn't give me any jinxure, why did I charge out? It is so evil. She isn't beautiful. If she was a beauty, Puyao pondered as he rubbed his chin. Beauty? Zuo glared, and instinctively raised his volume. If there is no jinxure, even beauties don't work. Then why? Puyao couldn't understand. Why? Zuo's brows furrowed, his face full of distress. This question was so strange, so confusing. If he couldn't resolve it, he wouldn't feel safe. If he went out like this again without knowing why, he might lose his little life. Just as Zuo was worried about this, inside a little quiet mountain cave not far away from Nanxing village, Ma Fan and Xia Shan opened their eyes at the same time. Chapter 261, Ambush. The cave was so dark that they couldn't see their own fingers. There was only a burst of sound as they moved out. They were doing their final inspections and preparations. It was abnormally silent as no one spoke. After a while, the preparations were finished, and killing intent silently spreading through as the mountain cave fell back into silence. Depart, Ma Fan spat out the word shortly. The procession swam out. Exiting the cave, the fresh air rushed onto their faces. Everyone couldn't help but show intoxicated expressions, but they quickly recovered their calmness. No one spoke. Even Lei Peng, who usually chatted on, was abnormally silent at this time. Everyone simultaneously flew into the air. After fighting so many hard battles together, the cooperation between the troops had matured. More than 300 people were floating in the air. The scattered troops exuded killing intent like a bow that was slowly being drawn. They didn't find any scouts in the sky. Ma Fan and Xia Shan looked at each other and saw the joy in the other's eyes. After resting for 5 days, everyone was full of energy and Ling power. The desire for battle that they had suppressed for so long was like a tiger breaking out of its cage and was unable to be stopped. Our target, Nanxing village. Ma Fan crisply gave the order and moved first. The entire troop simultaneously moved to action from silence. There was no hesitation, no disguise or trying to conserve energy. The flight speed of the troop was pushed to their limits as they headed straight towards Nanxing village. The scouts they encountered along the way stared with shock at this unfamiliar troop that had appeared out of nowhere. Ma Fan's procession did not tangle with the scouts at all, brimming with killing intent as they flashed by the scouts. The sound of wind howling in their ears, the wind blew on their faces like knives, and the scenery that flashed quickly under their feet caused the killing intent of these people to increase. In their eyes, Nanxing village was a weak beautiful woman that was half naked and could not resist at all. Their lives were content after having such an experience. As Nanxing village appeared in their vision, everyone's battle intent rose to the peak. Even a person as indifferent as Ma Fan felt as though his blood was ignited. Raising his flying sword high, he angrily shouted, "Kill! Kill!" Everyone raised their swords and sabers, booming in their reply that shook the landscape. The troop that appeared to be one being suddenly dismembered itself in the air and divided into 14 groups. Like 14 snakes, they revealed their sharp fangs and leapt down at Nanxing village. Ma Fan and Xia Shan each led a platoon as they charged at the very front. The two did not make any adjustments or detours, their bodies weighing down as they charged side by side. Two ruler straight air ripples drew through the air. The two troops were like arrows that left the bow as they shot towards the newly rebuilt village gates. The brand new village gates were like fragile cardboard, instantly torn to countless pieces that scattered in all directions. The two troops were not hampered in their speed, quickly passing through the ruler straight streets of Nanxing village. The sword energies crisscrossed. The high-speed dive greatly increased the power of the sword energies. The keen sword energies were even more unstoppable at this time. The buildings on the two sides of the main street were ground into dust. The shouja that jumped out all paled as they panicked. Facing such ferocious and insane sword essences, many shouja's awareness were stolen, and they lost their urge to fight. Pew pew pew. They were a destructive force, everywhere they passed innumerable bursts of blood rose. Amidst the loud roaring, the wails were not able to be heard. Boom! Ma Fan encountered the first resistance. A shouja gave a muffled grunt but took advantage of the sword energy's power to bounce in another direction. Ma Fan was slightly startled. This was an expert. Even he wasn't certain if he could escape under a charge like this own. This person should be a third stratum shouja. However, he ignored the other. One or two shouja would not dare to resist against a charge constructed like so. Even more, their morale and energy were at the best state right now. The 14 platoons were like 14 domineering and sharp sword energies flashing by in the blink of an eye. Nanxing village collapsed into pieces. Elder! Run! A pale guard pulled He Xiang and quickly burrowed into the ground. There was a transportation formation in the secret room underground. Just as they burrowed into the underground room, the building on the surface broke down. The light flashed on the transportation formations and no one was left in the room. There was no need to communicate. Everyone was high on killing. Ma Fan's procession was extremely smart. They did not have targets, they just charged. They did not pursue the shouja that escaped the first charge, they focused on furiously damaging Nanxing village. In a short amount of time, Nanxing village turned into ruins. They themselves were not wounded at all. Those who were leading were all those that comprehended sword essence. All the shouja, when they faced this many attacks, all lost their courage and escaped as far as they could. After charging a few times, everyone had to stop. There's no one alive, Xia Shan said with helplessness. He had been in a rhythm, and couldn't help but complain inside that Nanxing village really didn't have enough to kill. However, he also knew that if Nanxing village wasn't so weak, he wouldn't have come no matter what. Ma Fan made a sound of acknowledgement. Everyone, rest. Let's see if there is anything we can take. Ha, and likes doing this. Lei Peng grinned as he said. However, everyone's faces were ugly as they quickly gathered together again. Which motherfucker told in the outer hall was rich? Lei Peng's face was as black as the bottom of the pot as he angrily swore, and has never seen a place as poor as this. It's clean. It's so motherfucking clean. Unprofitable, so unprofitable. The faces of the other people were not much better. They had searched all of Nanxing village. Other than some still usable talismans and other things they could find on the bodies of the shouja they had killed, they actually hadn't found anything else of value. This was Nanxing village, the main camp of the outer hall. How could it be so poor? Just at this moment, a subordinate flew over. Darren, there's a camp nearby in the west. Everyone that hadn't found everything suddenly lit up. Was the storeroom over there? They did not hesitate to fly towards the camp. As they landed, they were full of anticipation. When they saw the entire camp filled with people who had fearful expressions on their faces, and had cultivations just in Lianqi, their expressions became extremely ugly again. Even Ma Fan, who had personally made the plan this time, didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Show slaves. This entire camp was all show slaves. Looking out, there probably were thousands of them. All of these show slaves had lianqi cultivation and were not of great use. The shouzhe that had been guarding the camp had escaped a long time ago. Ma Fan and the others had thought incorrectly. Even though He Xiang and the factions had been discussing business, but they hadn't transported any merchandise over. What they discussed were large orders, and transactions that would be completed in intervals. As a result, other than these show slaves, Nanxing village really didn't have anything else. Both Ma Fan and Xie Shan were very unfamiliar with doing business, so they couldn't ever have predicted the proceedings. They had rationally assumed that the stores of Nanxing village were bursting with mountains of resources. It had to be said that the merit rewards in the camp were also connected to their service and the spoils that they had contributed each time. They looked down on what they could hand over, that could be used to trade for good things from Boss. Boss had a lot of good things in his possession. They had been envious for a long time. Who could have thought that their plan would fail? Everyone's mood suddenly dropped to the bottom after having just achieving a victory. How about we take these show slaves, someone weakly suggested. What do we need show slaves for? Also, how can we transport so many people? Someone objected. There's slave transportation boats here. Their speed isn't slow and it's convenient for transporting people, another person quickly suggested. If we take a few boats of show slaves back, and also lianqi level show slaves, wouldn't we be laughed at when we get back? But we can't leave them to benefit the outer hall. Then should we kill all of them? I won't do it. I can't do something like massacring show slaves. Many shouzhe nodded their heads in agreement with those words. They were all shouzhe who had experienced many battles. All of them had blood on their hands. They felt it was normal to fight to the death. However, everyone still felt it was objectionable to massacre show slaves that were not able to put up any resistance. Of course, that can't leave them to benefit the outer hall struck their hearts even more. To say nothing of having gained nothing, no one was willing to let the outer hall have the slaves. After such an attack, the two sides definitely had no room to negotiate. The people of the outer hall would hate them to their bones. Take them, all of them. Ma Fan gritted his teeth, who cares if they are useful or not? Wait until we return first. The show slaves in the camp were herded onto the show slave boats. Everyone also stepped onto the slave transporting boats. The slave transporting boats were Jingshi talismans. They were extremely large, about 50 zhang long and shaped like a turtle with no sails. They could hold more than 1,000 show slaves. Show slaves were not rare. They were mostly the natives of newly discovered Jie. Some of the natives were very primitive, others had already stepped upon the path to cultivation. However, they were powerless against those great shouzhe sects and had all become show slaves. Many sects were enthusiastic about discovering new Jie. Jingshi and ores were things they needed desperately. If they could become the Jie master, they would become the literal emperor of that place. If they did not like doing so, they could sell the new Jie they possessed to other sects and receive large amounts of resources. Searching for Jie was a high-risk and high-return profession. After the natives were captured, the sect would pass some basic scriptures to them. Show slaves that entered lianqi could be bought and sold in the market. This kind of show slaves could do heavy labor like mining. Those show slaves who had exceptional talents would be marked with high prices to be sold to other sects to be slave soldiers. Slave soldiers would be taught more profound scriptures but, without exception, have Jingji put into them so that they absolutely would not dare to refuse the orders of the sect. Those sects who had long histories had even longer histories of bringing up slave soldiers. They would even have special slave soldier troops. Slave transporting boats were specialized slave transporting talismans. They were extremely large and could contain large amounts of show slaves. The body of the boats were also extremely hard because they needed to travel between Jia and pass through the turbulence of the void. Due to that, slave transporting boats were never below 5th grade. In terms of spoils of victory this time, their biggest one was these 5 slave-transporting boats. The outer hall had transported 5 boats of Shio slaves. They had already sold 4 boatloads of slaves, so there was 1 boatload of Shio slaves left. Naturally, Ma Fan and the others wouldn't leave the other 4 boats behind. Luckily, the boats could be shrunk when they were not in use. The miniaturized slave-transporting boats were about 3 chi large, and was very exquisite. Ma Fan and the others found it extremely puzzling that the slaves hadn't run away on the ships. What they didn't know was that the camp was very close to Nanxing village, so the outer hall didn't worry at all that the Shio slaves would dare to run. The camp was usually guarded very loosely. The people who were supposed to be guarding the slaves today had coincidentally gone to Nanxing village to have fun, and had not escaped the calamity. It was the first time many of the people had stepped onto a slave-transporting boat. All of them were very curious and looked around. Some of the people who had experience on the boats moved of their own initiative to steer the big boat. The slave-transporting boats slowly floated into the sky. Many people sighed with amazement at the 50 zhang boat. Everyone snickered and steered the ship into the distance with spirit. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.